course, on WURD. My name is Aja Graydon Dancer. I'm filling in for Andrea Lawful Saunders this week while she's out on sabbatical, if you will. If you don't know who I am, my name is Aja Graydon Dancer again. I'm one half of the singing group Kindred the Family Soul. If that means anything to you all out there, you might know me from a few songs called Far Away and Stars. I sing a little bit. I'm a mother. I'm a wife, been with my husband for 23 years almost in September. And, and so we are longtime residents of Philadelphia. My husband's from Philadelphia, and I've been in Philadelphia for the length of my marriage for 23 years. And so I feel like I'm an honorary Philadelphian. I have a lot of history here and a lot of roots here. So I'm really happy for you all to give me the opportunity to talk to you guys today and hang out for a little while. Today, we're going to do something a little different. Obviously, I'm here. I'm filling in. We're going to have a few guests. We're going to talk a little bit about these here Olympics, y'all. These Olympics. I like to call them the Black Girl Games because this year it feels like the Black women have taken over and changed the course of all the conversation as it pertains to the Olympics, as it pertains to so many different subject matters, from our hair to our mental health, to our personal agency. We've talked, everything has come up from intersectionality to, you name it. Black women have brought to the surface an absolute amazing conversation. And if you want to join in and give us a little bit of your feedback today, I want to encourage you to give us a call. The call-in number is 215-634-8065. We're going to be taking some calls, but more importantly, we're going to have some really great guests today. I'm really blessed to be able to have quite a few friends who are super smarty pantses when it comes to Black women and as it comes to, our experience in this country. We're going to be talking with Dr. Janice Johnson Dias, who is a PhD in sociology at John Jay University, but also she's an author. She's mother to Marley Dias, who you all might know, who led the huge campaign called 1,000 Black Girl Books. And I'll give you a little bit of more information on her background when we bring her on in a few. We're also going to be talking to Dr. Yaba Blay. She is also an author, a producer, and a content creator whose work really centers around the lived experiences of Black women. And finally, we're going to be talking to, in our last hour, Melissa Lawson, who is a local educator and school counselor, also an athletic administrator as well, and mother to some student athletes. So we're going to really talk about this and dig in deep because the truth of the matter is that the world stage is such a big opportunity for people to get an opportunity to see what we're doing and what we're up to. And many times the perception of the world, especially as it pertains to Black people and even more so to Black women, there can be a lot of confusion as to who we are and what we stand for. And so I have been just absolutely enamored and inspired by this year, which seems to have Black women absolutely on the forefront. So again, you are listening to WURD. If you guys want to reach out to friends or family and let them know to join in on this opportunity to listen and talk and fellowship, you can listen at 96.1 FM, 900 AM, or you can listen online at WURDradio.com. But anyway, I am again your guest host. I'm Aja Graydon Dancer. And my relationship with the Olympics this year really started, believe it or not, with Sha'Carri Richardson. When the footage of Sha'Carri winning the 100-meter Olympic qualifying race and just really had an amazing time. She ran this race, and immediately afterwards, she began to kind of declare, like, stop playing with me. Do y'all remember this? And she's like, stop playing with me. It was a part of me that felt so deeply connected to that moment as she understood that she came and she understood the assignment. But then even more so touching was the subsequent moment when she ran up into the stands and just collapsed into the arms of her grandmother. And I think everybody can relate to just how touching that was. I personally had recently, in the last few years, lost my mother and understood what it was like to have a supporter who was there cheering for you at all times. And so that moment for her, I really connected with me. And so as people were, cheering for her and really cheering her on, part of the conversation was the way that she looked. And as you all know, she has the fiery, hair with the wig or the unit. That's what we call it these days. We call it a unit, and the nails. And it harkened back to an Olympics from my childhood with Flojo, who was known for her on-track glamour. And we loved her. And that was an experience that I remember and really cherish from my childhood. And as people began to really big up Sha'Carri, it reminded me of the fact that here in this country, oftentimes we judge our young people so harshly, and that because she was on the world stage and she was at that point, had this really fast time, and she was very young. Shout outs to LSU where she attends. And for all of us, we really were happy to get behind her. But what concerned me was that, what do we do with the girls that look like Sha'Carri off the track? Are we supporting and cheering for them? And I thought about it for a while, and then I posted on Instagram about it, and the post went viral. And I was very shocked, but many, many people reposted this post. In which, I just asked that we continue to cheer for the girls who are not, running 100 meters at 10.6 seconds. At least I believe that was her time. Don't give me the lying. But, and so afterwards, we got so much good feedback from that I was, contacted by the Philadelphia Inquirer to write a think piece about it, or write a opinion piece, an op-ed about it. And I did. And that was like the beginning of my relationship with this year's Olympics. And it was pretty intense. I can't remember a year prior that I had that kind of experience. And I was very touched by people feeling like they could connect with my words. But more than anything, for the first time in my adult life, I began to see that this moment could actually help us to understand the broader a conversation around Black women and girls, about how we treat them, what we know about them, and how we talk about them. And so that really was touching for me, and it just changed the game for me. And little did I know that was just the beginning, that Black women were going to continue in the weeks to come to really elevate and change how we talk about Black women in sports and in the world. So of course, then you guys know, and this was actually prior to Sha'Carri, that Naomi Osaka, of course, who is a world tennis champion, also pulled out of Wimbledon. She pulled out of Wimbledon for reasons stating that she was overwhelmed and needed to look after her mental health. And this started another, set of conversation about the mental health of Black women. And this also relates to Sha'Carri as well, because she was experiencing grief, deep grief at the time that she ran her race. And so Naomi starts this conversation about mental health. And that tie continues throughout, even with Sha'Carri, because of course we know, and I'm sure you all talked about it, that we all talked about the fact that she got involved with the being tested for marijuana, and how we did support her in that, but the reason why she would be smoking in the first place. So anyway, we have a caller. We have Ron from North Philly on line 1. Hi, Ron.
I'm fine. How you doing?
I'm good. Hold on, I can't hear you as well. Can y'all turn him up, please?
Hello?
Yeah, okay, there you go. I'm having a hard time, but I can hear you.
Yes. I have a different approach of this, and I hope everything's all right with her. But she won all those medals. She did not get the exposure in reference to advertising like she was supposed to get. And I'm looking at this as a tactical approach, and I hope there's nothing wrong with her that this is a tactical approach. So now that she's going to come back strong, look how all the news coverage she's going to get, and she's going to benefit by that. I certainly hope, not disregarding anything serious with her, but look at this, and I'm looking at the timing of everything, and she's coming back at a proper time. Can you realize all the news media is going to be covering her even before they knew she was good, but nothing like this. So I'm looking at it from that perspective, and I'm glad to see our black athletes with the different racial, with diversity and everything, that's doing very well. And this is what it's all about, her being well and being able to make something to take care of her family with financial wealth. So that's my comment. I think it was somewhat of a tactical approach. I'm looking at the timing of all this, and now she's coming back at the most crucial part of the games to display her talent. So time will tell that. So thank you for taking my call, man. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you, Ron. Thank you, Ryan. And I like what Ryan had to say because, it ends up being like a tactical approach. So she ends up really kind of benefiting from this moment. I'm assuming you're talking about Sha'Carri Richardson. I didn't ask. I didn't ask you to clarify. But again, it does turn out to be a little bit, a blessing for her in the long run, because now the conversation has just widened. So when she does return to the Olympics, then when she returns again, there will be so much press around her and she's already received quite a bit of support from corporate America as well, and the Black community as well. And of course, from us other Black girls who see ourselves in these women. And, so we talked a little bit about Naomi Osaka. We talked about Sha'Carri Richardson, of course, and which is, like I said, we could do a whole show just on that. But then Simone Biles comes up in women's gymnastics. And of course, there's been a lot of controversy from the very beginning, because at one point she's so excellent that now they want to underscore her so they do not have the other gymnasts, quote unquote, feeling badly. She was already dealing with that bit of drama. And then she experienced, and I want to make sure I say this right, and we're going to really talk about this in the 3:00 hour when we talk with Melissa Lawson, who's going to come in and talk to us about what actually happened to Simone Biles and what's called twisties or something like that, which is something that happens sometimes to gymnasts when they lose track of where they are, and it can be quite dangerous. And so this was not just a mental health decision, but also a physical health decision in which Simone Biles decides to withdraw. And then, child, baby, the whole of America, well, certain parts of America anyway, the whole of certain parts of America decided to have a whole full-on fit about her pulling out, called her everything from unpatriotic to being weak to being, soft. And what's wrong with being soft? I mean, who don't want softness? I mean, I'm tired of it, actually. But again, she was accused of all kinds of things. And so it continued this thread in conversation about how these pressures and these systems, whether it be press, whether it be the organization or organizations like Wimbledon or the Olympic Association, how these organizations and their demands play themselves out on the psyche and the health of the athletes. And of course, this affects all the athletes, but, for me, I'm a Black woman. And so my immediate, relationship is going to be to how it affects them. And of course, this has been on the world stage for the last few weeks. And so we're at this place where we're talking about something that has in the social sphere, we've just begun to, like, the tip of the iceberg. Black women are just now talking about things like self-care. We're just exploring this idea of what it means to handle the pressures of the world and how our pressure is a unique one. And then we get all of these things happening to these particular women. But of course, Simone Biles is not alone. It's not just Simone. We also had quite a bit of protesting So we had quite a few of Black women in the Olympics this year who decided to take this moment to let their voices be heard. So just recently, just the other day, they posted a story about Raven Saunders, who won the silver medal in the shot put, who on the on the podium decided that she was going to put up a big X. Before I finish that story, I do want to tell you guys, if you are listening on Facebook, this is my first time doing this via Zoom. And so I will be checking the Facebook messages in the break. So if I'm not answering your questions or addressing you on Facebook in real time, please be patient with me, love bugs. I am here filling in again for your girl. I hope y'all don't miss her too much as I rant. Andrea Lawful Sanders, thank you for letting me be here. But again, I just want to let you guys know I will be checking those in the break. But getting back to Raven Saunders, she won the silver medal in shot put. When she got up on the podium, she decided this was the opportunity for her to express herself. She put up a big X with her arms. If you're watching online, you can see me doing that. And what she said that meant was that it represented intersectionality. She is 25 years old, so she is young. She is Black, she is a woman, she is gay, and she talked about as well that she struggles with depression. So that is also a disability. So we're looking at an intersection of multiple identities. And I mean, come on, y'all. Have we ever had an opportunity to talk about something this complex through the Olympic Games? And who was the person to bring it up but a Black woman? Amen. I really just listen. If you out there, you just need to clap real quick, snap, clap, whatever. I don't even know what you're doing right now, but come on now. We are killing it. So again, this was an opportunity for her. Also, early on in the Olympics, she had Gwen Berry, who was third place in the hammer throw, who also decided that she would not be standing for the national anthem, which they played anyway. So she turned her back and put a t-shirt over her head that said athlete activist. And so it's been ripe with not only conversations about mental health, but also conversations about protest, about social awareness. And we know that, especially in the last couple of years, any opportunity for people to be vocal, they have taken the opportunity to talk about, different kinds of things within, their own personal social awareness. And it's been inspiring to see it. But this time, it is just bringing up so many, many things at once. So again, we have Black women bringing up mental health. We have Black women bringing up social awareness. And then there was another conversation that included all the women in the Olympics, which they talked about the uniforms and the disparity between how the uniforms in the Olympics have been sexualized. And I can't wait to talk to our guests about some of these things, just because I really am looking forward to getting their feedback on this, because this is pretty intense. But I think we're about ready to take a break. Let me make sure. Yeah, I still have a few minutes. Anyhow, I'm excited to talk to them about this. So the women were upset because they felt that the uniforms in volleyball, in gymnastics, in diving, quite a few different areas of the Olympics were too sexualized. And whereas the men were able to wear fully clothed, bodies covered, doing the exact same sport. And one of the teams from Germany, I think, was one of the first teams to speak out and change their uniforms in protest, which I think is pretty amazing. But speaking of uniforms, and this is a big deal because this year in America, we talked about Black women and the legislation being passed so they can wear their natural hair. And so this came up again during the Olympics. And the swim teams wanted to wear, I believe her name is Alice Deering, who is a British swimmer who has an afro, who wears something called a soul cap, which is meant to cover up her natural hair so that she can swim competitively. So anyway, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking with Dr. Janice Johnson-Dias. Y'all hang in there and we'll be back real soon.
Hey, WURD family, did you hear? It's official. The Colorectal Cancer Alliance just announced the new age for colon cancer screenings has been officially lowered to age 45 for everyone. If you are 45 or older, it's time to get screened. Go to wordradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner to register for your free at-home screening test. Did you know colon cancer is largely preventable with on-time screening? And there's a 90% survival rate when caught early. African Americans are 20% more likely to get colon cancer and about 40% more likely to die from it than most other groups. So for the next 3 months, you can go to wordradio.com and click on the Go to Know banner for your free at-home screening test. A screening navigator will contact you to ask a few questions and help you get screened. It's that simple. Again, just go to wordradio.com, click on the Go to Know banner, and fill out the form to request your free at-home screening test. Go to Know today.
Family Therapy Vignette Moments with Dr. Lucille Ijoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you complete a job, you feel so much better. You'll sleep better, you'll feel satisfied, you may even cook a fancy meal and share it with a neighbor when you complete a job. You will rest better and breathe. Breathe, everybody. Let me hear you breathe. Whew, breathe again, breathe again. It's very important to breathe. Say, you have completed a job. Well, after the job is completed, it's time to dance. It's time to tap your feet. And you're going to listen to something called Shake, Rattle, and Roll by Joe Turner. Here it comes.
Shake, rattle, and roll. Shake, rattle, and roll. Shake, rattle, and roll. Shake, rattle, and roll. Well, you won't do right to save your doggone soul.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. Maybe you're not sure how you'll make rent, or you lost your job. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light. Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need.
211, how can I help you?
Call or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected. Get help. A message from United Way and the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio,
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Hey everybody, this is Asia Graydon Dancer and you're listening to The Source. I'm filling in for your girl, Andrea Lawful Saunders. And today we are talking about these here Olympics. I call them the Olympics because now it's ours. You know, forget the Olympics, now it's the Olympics. This year we found that the Olympics have really been taken over by the politics, the lives, the excellence of Black women. And it has been a ride. I'm absolutely here for it. It is just an amazing thing to watch. Okay. Today we have our first guest on the line. Her name is Dr. Janice Johnson Dias. She is a PhD in political and urban sociology at John Jay University. She's the founder of Grassroots Community Foundation, which centers its work around women and girls, mothers and children. She is also the mother of activist and scholar Marley Dias, who came up with the campaign 1,000 Black Girl Books, which sought to improve the representation of Black girls in books and expose Black girls to books in which the Black girls are the main character. And she is the author of the amazing book, Parent Like It Matters, because who don't need some help out here trying to raise these kids? So I welcome her to the show. Welcome, Dr. Janice Johnson Dias.
Hello, it is my pleasure to be here and to talk to you again.
Yes, indeedy. That's indeedy. I have to put it out there. Listen, I'm trying to be professional, but this is my friend. And I do love her quite dearly. Her commitment to Black women is, barely matched. She's out here doing all of the good work. And so I felt that you were just the best person to talk to about this. First from the gate, can you tell me just a few moments that absolutely resonated with you as a former Black girl and a current Black woman? Some things that happened during this year Olympics that really resonated with you.
I mean, I'm not sure resonate as like infuriated that I really just kept thinking about. One is having to explain why you're choosing to consider yourself. Like something about that is just absolutely irrational to me. Like, so many of these young people have had to give the most intimate details of their lives in order to satisfy our curiosities about their decisions. And I am not a person who believes that no is a complete sentence. In fact, I'm from the counter school. I do think you have to offer some modest explanation, but the intrusion is really, it's the hallmark of what happens to vulnerable people, black women, is that you must actually give more than is necessary to satiate the appetite of people. So that has really been a frustrating point for me around the Olympics in so many ways. And we're so easy to do it because we know that that's what's required of us. The other thing that I think has been at the heart of it is the inability for people to understand why preserving your mental wellness is not trivial. That, in fact, your mental wellness is as important, if not in some cases more important, than your physical wellness.
Amen.
And watching how inept we are and watching how we lack the language to engage our conversation really thoroughly, that we continue to say mental health when we mean mental illness, that our language is delayed in the way that we're thinking about mental health. So those have been the kind of two core things that have been on my spirit as I've watched so much unfold, of which I really just been baffled and irritated at for the past maybe, before the trials, including the trials, and now at the Olympics.
I mean, it's the opposite of I said what I said, right? You want to be able to say, listen, I said what I said, but it can't be that for us. We have to get into the deep, darkest depths of what we are experiencing to get a basic level of empathy.
Yes. And actually, I sometimes have this conversation with my students. So, for those of you who are listening, I'm an associate professor of sociology at John Jay. And my students will say, Professor, I couldn't make the class, and I hope I can make up the work. And, I'm like, okay, this is, students are allotted 3 absences. And that's fine. This is their first absence. Nothing is required. And they will instead not just say that. My black and brown students will tell me that their parent was incarcerated, that their mother was on drugs, all of these really intimate details of their lives. Now, these details can create closeness, but it's for me, what it reveals is that we have no space to just be private, that unless we show our underbellies, no one is going to believe us. It is, and I'm not even sure it's intimacy as much as it is the veracity. Like, people just don't believe that you're being truthful until you tell them you had an abortion, until you tell them that your insides aren't working, until you tell them your mother has died. Like, the lack of trust means that we have to reveal more than is necessary and overexpose ourselves. And that, to me, is a violation.
Yes. I mean, just to think of it in terms of a violation is accurate. I think a lot of times we feel the experiences that we have are par for the course.
Yeah.
So we get too used to it.
Yeah.
Am I correct or no?
That numbness, that idea that if I don't tell you and show you receipt of my pain, then my pain is not real, and therefore it's undermined, is yet again another highlighting moment of what it means to be black and woman, even at this highest stage. And I need it to mean something else. I need us to be given the humanity that is given to majority cultures across the globe. I really need that for us. And I am saddened that, that these black children who are under 25 years old are exposed to this level of pain. And I want us to start thinking more in a framework around our wellness and to get more language on how we can begin to think of mental wellness as a baseline in the same way we think about physical wellness as an important baseline. And for us to have language and benchmark that shows that we are in good mental wellness. Because the phrase mental health is just that. It's just a descriptor. Mental health illness, like physical health illness, are something distinctly different.
Right. You're like, you guys are forgetting that this has subcategories.
Yeah.
That health could go either way. It could be bad or good.
It could be bad or good.
So in terms of us having language, give us a few things that we need to kind of, just for those of us out here who don't even understand, like, what language? Give us a few things that we should keep in mind in terms of language around mental wellness, and possibly make some data connections, maybe some things we might need to know out in the world of sociology, what you guys have, what you've learned and observed about just data-wise with Black women and just as a community around mental wellness.
So there are a couple of things. So I think that we know a lot of illness data, right? And we should know these illness data because they matter, right? So we know that hypertension, which is high blood pressure, is a problem in our community. We also know something about the sources of high blood pressure, that sugar and salt are the reasons for high blood pressure. We know about heart disease, right? We know those things on the physical health issue side, right? But we also know physical preventative health measures. We know that if we need to walk 60 minutes or exercise for 60 minutes 7 days of the week, each day, we need to get certain hours of sleep. If your child is under 11, they need 11 hours of sleep. The average person needs about 8 hours. You need a little bit less as you age. We also know we need 5 to 9 servings of vegetables, fruits and vegetables, in order to create and have good health, right? So we have the illnesses and we have the things that we can do to improve our health, right? On the mental health side, we have some really bad numbers. We know suicide rates are up with Black girls. We know that depression and anxiety is soaring across the nation, but really living in the bodies of Black women and Black girls, right? So we know that as a nation state, we're sick in this way. What we are still struggling with is, if we can tell you about 5 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables, what do we need to tell you about your mental wellness that you need to do preventative? Here are a couple of things that we know. It is important that we try to spend 3 to 5 hours a week outdoors, in nature, without doing anything. So our eyes and our bodies, people who spend time in green spaces have better mental health and reduced chances of being ill. You don't have to be exercising out there. You just have to be out there, because we know nature feeds our soul. People who have loving people who they can actually express their ideas to, and that person doesn't interrupt them and just listen, better mental wellness. People who are in closer connection and in community with people, that they have better mental wellness, right? So one of the reasons our girls here at Grassroots, they formed a campaign called Green Ribbon Week, because so much and every time we talk about mental illness, we talk about mental health, we're only talking about the illness. And they started a campaign to focus on what can we do to support preventative mental health, right, in the way that we do and promote intake of fruits and vegetables, going to see your doctor twice a year, all the rest of those things. We're still trying to get healthcare professionals, the public health community, to really give us a really shortcut ways of the ways in which we can preserve our mental health. But for now, I know Philadelphia has, for example, the largest park. It's actually way bigger than Central Park, Franklin, right? Is the largest park. We could spend some time in those green spaces. That would really matter. If we would just talk to each other, especially adults, if you could let children talk without interrupting them, count to 60 in your head, we know that this would improve their mental wellness. And if I just want us to marinate on that.
No, I'm serious because, come on, listen, this is not the way we were raised to let children talk uninterrupted about anything.
No, it's really, and also it is hard. This is one of the things that they teach you when I was a high school English teacher. They teach you about, like, allow for the silence.
Woo!
Allow for the silence, right? So, like, no, you do not have to fill the space. The space will be filled. Listening is an art that facilitates your well-being, your connection with your children, and it does the same for them. So just try it. So during September, join us. But if you could start practicing now, sit and talk with your child and your children and try counting to 60 while still listening to them and not say a word.
Well, I did this last September, and I'm going to tell you something. I learned a lot about my children. I learned that they were quite able to problem solve in ways that I did not give them credit for because I was too busy coming up with the solution to the issue that they were talking to me about. And so that's what I learned from Green Ribbon Week. And so I do encourage everybody to participate this year, but start now. Like the good doctor said, start now. In terms of sports, and specifically around these, us watching the Olympics, because I don't call it the Olympics anymore, watching the Olympics, is that these children, these women were children. They started this process when they were children. The pressure of sports, and particularly sports on a world stage, I'm sure that it requires even more attention to these mental health issues. And so do you have any thoughts about should there be a more intense or more intentional way that we deal with children when they're dealing in sports? Now, mainly because also, and consider this, that we tell people to be tough. A lot of this talk about being tough, and that toughness and endurance is a part of being excellent at sport.
Yeah.
Specifically. So how do we balance out that between,
So I think that there are a couple of things. We know that a lot of people's dreams live on their children's athletic excellence, right? So there are many of us who see it as the pathway out of economic distress.
Come on.
And so from very early on, we have our children in sports. We do know that sports really matter, and they particularly matter for girls. We know that if we look at the top women in business across the globe, that they played a sport. We also know that it's really good for protecting us against body dysmorphia and challenges, maybe not so much gymnastics, but other sports allow girls to be comfortable in their body. We know that sports for girls delay sexual initiation, and all of these other wonderful things, and it's really good for team building. At the same time, we understand that our children across all domains, especially in sports, are now, because of the democratization of social media, there are more eyes than usual on them. That everyone is a coach or an Olympian in their living rooms or on their phones. And so a lot of people have a lot of things to say about these Olympians. I am not an Olympian. And
nor am I.
I know, and I feel fortunate that I do know two Olympians, right? And I can only imagine what it is like. But I do think that as we're raising our children, especially Black children, if we could, if listeners, if you could do this for me if you could practice for 365 days to stop using the word strong to describe Black people, Black children, it would be most helpful. It is very much like the word nice. It lacks character. We can be better, and we can find better words. And so when we say to our children to be strong, we miss the fact that children also need to be many other things. They need to be vulnerable. They need to be delicate. They need to have space to fail. They need to feel all of the full gamut of emotions, and strong is just not enough. And so if you have your child in sports, make sure that the child actually likes the sport, wants to do the sport, because it requires a lot of compromise on the adult's part and also on the child's part. In the case of Simone Biles, there's several conditions that are happening for her simultaneously. She cannot
hold
take
on. I'm
her
so sorry.
medication.
You are in it. Oh, man. And I really have to go to break. Is there any way you could finish this on the other side of the break?
I'm here.
Okay, great. I love it. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You guys are listening to WURD. You're listening to The Source. And I'm Aja Graydon Dantzler.
Kamasi Washington brings his fall tour to the Met Philly, one of only 6 dates on the East Coast. Don't miss Kamasi Washington October 20th at the Met Philly. Tickets on sale now as of July 30th. Tickets available at Ticketmaster.com.
Join WURD for the Summer of Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour. This year we celebrate West Oak Lane, Mantua, North, West, and South Philly. I'm Tiffany Bacon, and I'll broadcast live from a different neighborhood each Friday from 10 a.m. until 12 noon. Our next stop is South Philly at the Marian Anderson Rec Center, 740 South 17th Street on Friday, August 6th. Enjoy live performances, meet special guests, and stand with WURD. Be a part of the movement to amplify the voice of the Black community. Show your support and join or renew your onWURD membership on site. That's the Summer of Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour at the Marian Anderson Rec Center from 10 a.m. until 12 noon on Friday, August 6th. WURD, showing love this summer.
The WURD Radio Neighborhood Love Tour is sponsored by Comcast and supported by Pico, Keystone First, and Ready Set Philly.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio,
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Hi, we're back. You're listening to The Source. My name is Aja Graydon Dantzler. I'm filling in for Andrea Lawful Saunders. And today we are talking to Dr. Janice Johnson Dias, and she was just about to tell us, as Black parents, what we need to do in order to address our children as they engage in sports and try to be excellent is specifically inspired by this year's Olympics as we deal with our children, specifically our girls. So if you could just go back into the advice you were giving us, Dr. J.
So I am happy to repeat. Thank you so much. A part of it is I began by asking that we reject the word strong to describe Black children, to describe Black adults, and that this particular adjective just lacks character and depth and nuance. And in fact, we need to find new and different words. And it's really important that we make sure that our children are engaged in sports, not because of our ambition to help them escape economic distress, but because the likelihood is so low, right, regardless of what we see. But that sports really have these other benefits, of which teamwork, reduced initiation into sex, and also the capacity to be able to really be passionate and driven. I was about to say, in the case of Simone Biles, we have several things that are coming to a head, other than the fact that this is a ridiculously large Olympics on the international stage. This is also a young person who has ADHD, who is a survivor of sexual assault, and who has accomplished so much that she has been dehumanized in the sense that we think of her as superhuman. And I always want to, I think every time I talk to you, Aja, I come back to this concept, which is people think that superhumanness is not dehumanization, but it really is dehumanization. That when we start to put our children and treat them as if they're superhumans, and we do that with athletes quite a bit, then we forget their humanity again.
Yeah.
And a lot of our children who are in sports have ADHD, which is a mental health disorder that causes above normal levels of hyperactivity and impulsive behavior. And Simone Biles' drugs for ADHD were banned in Japan, but she did apply for a waiver so she could have her medication there with her. But she's already has this a chronic condition of having to deal with these difficulties, and she has been able to soar despite these challenges. And so as she brings these things to bear, I think that I've read quotations from other athletes that suggested that she's soft. I've also read quotations of people that suggest that that somehow she's not giving it her all. And yet she is the most, decorated in her field, which is to suggest that, like, when children, when young people, when adults do not live up to our expectation, this is not the opportunity to berate or demean them. It is actually the opportunity to think about how to be most supportive. And I've been so pleased as I've been over the past year with Black women showing up yet again
yes.
to remind people that love and support matter. And I am grateful for all of the different Black social media outlets, of which there now all are, who have keep reminding people that Simone Biles is an actual human being on the other side. But if you have an athlete in your home or a burgeoning athlete, it is important that you remember their humanity, that you say and ask and check in with them regularly about how they are feeling about this position. Sports medicine, especially sports psychology, is a huge field for a reason, because people have monies. They're commodified, their bodies for fees and dollars. And that level of economic exchange on Black bodies is not trivial to this conversation. And so we start this process with Black athletes very early. Our school's going to win this title. We're dependent on you to hold this system up. We do this very early, and Simone Biles is just the end of a long lifetime of people commodifying Black bodies for their own amusement and for their economic dollars.
Yeah. Woo! That's intense. But it's facts.
It really
it's
really
important. And I love that you touched on the idea of continuing to see our humanity. I think many times we get the term Black excellence is amazing. However, I think we need to keep that idea in perspective, that we're not dehumanizing ourselves on the opposite end by, presenting ourselves like, superheroes or people without, pain. And we're already dealing with that aspect in the world already, that we don't also participate. And
that's why strong is so horrible. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but strong is like the first thing, like, just be strong, girl. Just be strong. How about Joan? How about maybe now is not the time to be strong. Now is the time. I am the queen of the pity party. I invite the whole group, right? Now is the time for the pity party. And when the party's over, then maybe there'll be an after party. Maybe. Okay? But strong is not always the answer.
Yeah. I mean, I think Simone Biles also said, and she spoke about this on Twitter, about how this experience helped her to see her value outside of her accomplishments, which is heartbreaking. Yeah. It's heartbreaking that it would take something like this for her to then see that value in herself outside of what she's able to do on the mat. And it sends a message to us all that, you can accomplish all these things and still have a very warped sense of self-value. And that is important to know, because if the constant messaging is be excellent, be excellent, be excellent, this is all you need to do to ascend and succeed, then you're leaving out a very important part of how you value yourself as a human being. And so, so I think that this is really, really important to think about. You know what I'm saying?
And that point that you just raised, which is, here is a person who is so accomplished, but she has been holding up all this time. She is fundamentally, when I read that quotation too, my heart just ached. And I was like, there's like no framework to think of herself. Like, if she's not making people money, if she's not winning awards for countries and for teams, then who is Simone Biles? Like, just imagine that, right? Like, in and of yourself, like, mattering is such a universal and important thing, but if your mattering is always contingent on, conditional of, then that's a level of pain that is so overwhelming. And again, I'm really glad that Black women really rose to the occasion to say, no, you matter more than this award. You matter more than this moment. Our capacity to give love and heal in love is so important, and what Black women have done in this moment is continue to heal this entire globe. And we still did this for this moment, and we did it right before this moment, and we know what's going to happen again.
We know it's going to happen again. Listen, I know if you guys are listening to us, we just want to remind you, like, we're talking about the Olympics, but what we're talking about in addition to that is just how Black women have changed the narrative. They have changed the conversation. They have pushed the entire thing forward through their experiences in this year's Olympics. And if you want to chime in, you can call it 215-634-8065. And tell us how you feel, especially tell us how you felt about what Dr. Janice Johnson-Dias just told us. Again, she reminded us that we need to highlight the humanity of our young people, that we need to try to stay away from the word strong. Let's use some better words to describe ourselves and our young people as we, navigate, the best version of ourselves and what we do out in the world, and that we don't forget that. I also wanted to highlight another thing that you said, as you spoke about mental health as an overarching subject matter, but definitely something that has to be looked at on both sides, mental illness and mental wellness. So I just really want to thank you so much for coming on the show and hanging with us. You're just brilliant always. And I'm just so grateful to have you.
I always love being here. I love talking to you. I love your capacity to see us and to make space for us. And yes, audience, she is my real friend. But I do think, we spend a lot of time in sisterhood doing work around mental wellness that I think many groups of people do. But I want us to make sure, if you heard nothing of what I've said today, for those who are listening, is that when we begin to acknowledge that our wellness matters, then we will begin to feel when our wellness is no longer wellness but illness. We need to be in relationship with ourselves so that we know when something is awry. And that work of sisterhood, that work of community that I have with you, Asia, and my sister friends, when that is missing or absent, that's when I know that there is something amiss. But we have to know the good in order to have true recognition of when something is awry. And I just want to thank you for keeping me in the good.
Yes, I thank you too. I thank you too. We depend on one another. And so in this moment, hopefully we were able to be sister friend to many of the people who are out there listening. Thanks, guys, for hanging. We're going to take a quick break. And on the other side, we're going to discuss this even further. You're listening to WURD. This is The Source. And I'm Aja Graydon-Dantzler, filling in for Andrea Lawful-Saunders.
Word Radio Digital Tip of the Month with Stephanie Humphrey. Brought to you by Comcast.
You might be enjoying the hot days of summer, but your smartphone probably isn't. Hotter temperatures can potentially damage your phone, so here are some things you can do to keep it cool. Don't leave your phone in direct sunlight or locked in a car if possible. And if you don't absolutely need it, ditch the smartphone case too. That can easily trap heat. Change the settings to lower the brightness, turn off data, put your phone in airplane mode, or try to do less high-powered activities like gaming. If you do notice your smartphone overheating, turn it off and take out the battery if you can. And don't try to cool it down by putting it in a refrigerator or freezer. Just keep your phone in a cool area for a while until it returns to room temperature. Stay cool, stay tuned to WURD for more tips, and stay connected with us at wordradio.com.
Need to replace your Social Security card? In most states, you can request one online with a My Social Security account. A My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal earnings history and benefit status. You can also get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Be there this Friday at the Summer Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour and stand with WURD Radio to amplify voices of the Black community as a digital 4WURD member for as low as $5 per month. And receive a free gift for signing up. See you on Friday and join Tiffany Bacon, 10 a.m. till noon at the Marian Anderson Recreation Center, 740 South 7th Street, or visit WURDradio.com. Start or renew your 4WURD membership today.
And today we are talking about the Olympics, baby, and how these Black women have changed the game, how they have changed the conversation and shifted the narrative. We just got an opportunity to talk with Dr. Janice Johnson Dias. I hope you did not miss it because she went all the way in. Before I give you a little bit of a highlight from that, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Jamaican track team, because what y'all don't know is that Dr. Janice Johnson Dias is also born in Jamaica, and the Jamaican team has really kind of has broken the existing 100-meter record, which was formerly held by FloJo. And I want to big them up because Black women, this is a diaspora thing. So yes, obviously we've been talking about a lot of the Black women who represented for the United States, but we want to big up all of the Black women who participated from Puerto Rico, Jamaica, and so on and so on. So we have a call on the line. We have Joseph from Massachusetts on line 1. Hi, Joseph.
Joseph from Massachusetts. Could you hear me?
I can hear you. You're low, but can you talk loud for me, darling?
I'm good at talking loud. Yeah, you know, your last guest, I call that what you call is dangerous. It's dangerous talking, from the mental illness to the Black female athlete. I train with some of the best female athletes in the world. Maisel Thomas, Jamaica all-time list in the high jump, 6'2", NCAA champ, 6'2" in the high jump, NCAA Division I and Division II champ, 1986. Marlene Lewis once held the title as the world's second strongest woman, Jamaican record holder in the discus. I have nothing against female athletes. I love the female athlete, from Evelyn Ashford to Wilma Rudolph to Gail Diva to Jackie Joyner-Kersee. But we talking some dangerous stuff. When we keep saying, what about being a mother? That's why we have what we have going on is a clash of culture. That's why the Taliban is winning. That's why ISIS is winning. That's why Mozambique, that Islamic group, they see what they're doing. These Zionist Jews are having us talk about women being equal to men. Next thing you know, they're going, one woman fight men. What about being a mother? What about cooking? 80% of divorces, the woman get the custody of the child. 50% of marriages end in divorce in America. 72% of Black children are born out of wedlock. So the mother, what about being a mother? I majored in psychology. When a little girl, little boy, and you leave them to their own demise, they're going to eventually play with what they call boy toys, and the girls will play with the girls' toys. She going to want to play doll, want to play cooking, because that's genetic. We're going against Mother Nature. There's an old saying, it's not nice to fool Mother Nature. You don't see the Jewish family talking the kind of stuff that we Black people talk. Well, why? It's all about population control. They don't want Black women to have a lot of kids. They want to.
Yeah, so, you know, I thank you, Joseph, for sharing, you know, the fact of the matter is that, you know, Dr. Dias is, you know, very well educated as well. And like I said, you know, we have a myriad of different ways that we think about these things. But, you know, obviously what we're talking about at the core of this is our mental health and making sure that we are well and that we respect one another and that we hold each other up. So I thank you for calling in. And, you know, again, what we talked about, you know, in the interview before, and Joseph had some pretty strong ideas. And you know what? I'm just going to go out here and say, I don't agree personally, But I understand that some of the things that he's saying are some of the things that many people think and believe, and that as we move forward in the world, we have many arguments back and forth about what it is to be a woman and what it is to be strong, and if it's okay, and and how we discuss this. But I think at the core of this is to listen to Black women. I think this is what we're learning to do, is to listen to the people who are living the experience. And that's what this situation here with the Olympics has happened, is that now you have women on the world stage and they're able to speak to, exactly how they feel, and again, like, I don't want to, get into a debate about your personal feelings, but I just encourage you, Joseph, or anyone who thinks like him, to listen to Black women, to open up your ears and heart, and always acknowledge the humanity and not necessarily the ideology or the things that you've grown up believing or knowing, that you listen to the people with the lived experience. So I think that that's the most important thing when we're having a conversation like this one. Again, if you want to chime in, right, respectfully, you can call 215-634-8065. I'm Aja Graydon Dantzler. Again, I'm filling in for Andrea Lawful Saunders. I hope y'all miss her, because we all do miss her, but I hope I'm doing a good job. Let me know if I'm hanging in there with y'all. And again, today we're talking about Black women, and we're talking about sports, and the whole, the way that our ideas and our experience has been put on the world stage through these here Olympic Games. Let me look on here on my notes, and I want to say this also. Oh, quickly, another thing. I was shouting out the Jamaican team before we went on. Before we answered that call. So again, shout out to the Jamaican team and all of the Black women across the diaspora who have shown up and showed out during the games. I wanted to also give a shout out to Haley Washington, who's on the volleyball team, and she is from Philly. So I want all of Philly to know that in this group of representatives and these women who are out here doing their thing, that one of them is from the city of Philadelphia. So big ups to her. I want to tell you guys a story. My daughter actually used to run track, and I'm sorry. Yeah, my daughter used to, you know what? Okay. My daughter used to run track, and we used to be out at that track field all day long. Hot, especially the outdoor season. And so she would run cross country, indoor, and then outdoor. And so we ran track for a long time. And she worked her way from coming in, I want to say she started out coming in like 9th place in her heat, like not doing well at all, to about a year and a half later coming in number 1 in her heat, and then finally making it to semifinals where she might have been able to go to state. And so finally she ran, and as she was running, she injured herself and hurt her hip. And after that long journey of coming from being the last person to then being able to possibly qualify to compete at the state level, it was really devastating to have an injury. And I know that a lot of times that we encourage our young people to quote unquote push through. And I know that strength is a big deal in our community, but I don't regret allowing her to just heal and to acknowledge her humanity in that moment, because who knows what type of long-term injuries could have happened as a result of that. And we want to make sure that what we're doing is for the best long-term goals of our young people. And we can only do that by mirroring that behavior, not only with ourselves, but how we discuss other people on the world stage. I have learned this over time because I, like everybody else, we grew up in a time where we really needed heroes, where we feel that as Black people in particular, that we need to celebrate the accomplishments of each other so that we can show the world that we are not the stereotypes that people think that we are. And the emotional attachment to needing a hero sometimes puts us in a position where we allow ourselves to be abused from the inside out. And this is just not behavior that I'm interested in mirroring with my children, nor am I interested in mirroring it with myself. And so this experience with these women athletes has really brought this to the surface for so many of us. And I'm hoping that the louder and broader, messaging that we come away with this is that we turn not only the humanity on our children and these athletes, but that we turn this humanity on ourselves, and that we see the women in our everyday life as human beings. And though they may not be running track, or they may not be swimming, or they may not be doing shot put, that what we think about their lives and how we think about them as human beings is primary, and that we allow the systems around them to treat them in the exact same way. This wasn't the Olympics, but of course, I'm sure you guys remember not too long ago when Serena Williams almost died after childbirth, as she tried to explain to the doctors that she was having trouble breathing. And this brought about a statistic amongst Black women that many of us had no idea about, which is the rate of mortality during giving childbirth, and the rate of death during childbirth being 4 times higher than that of white women. And so this came to the forefront and was specifically shocking because it didn't matter how much money and how much accomplishment that she had. All that mattered was that she was Black and that she was not believed. And that really harkens back to what Dr. Janice was talking about. We have another caller on the line. This is Tracy from Center City. Hi, Tracy.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good to talk to you.
Excellent. Good to hear from you.
I want to make a comment about the caller from Massachusetts, Joseph.
Yeah, that was deep.
I bet he was one time that he called up during the Bill Cosby controversy.
Yeah.
And he was saying that it's better to get raped than get killed and all kinds of crazy nonsense like that. You know,
yeah, I mean, he was struggling with quite a few things as it was concerning women.
Right.
I'm trying not to, I mean, I can't help but insert my own opinion, but, we're trying to make sure we give everybody an opportunity to speak.
Right. I heard him before a couple of times, and he's always against women, women, so, but how do you feel about the Bill Cosby controversy, the latest one?
I'm sorry, say that one more time for me.
How do you feel about the Bill Cosby controversy?
Oh, the Bill Cosby controversy. Well, how do I feel?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, I think first and foremost, we need to change the way that we talk about sexual assault and how we talk about survivors,
right,
and how we talk about consent. There's so many overriding issues. I think a lot of times what we do is we get very concerned about the person that we're talking about, which is important because this is, because this person has harmed other people or allegedly harmed other people.
Right.
So it's important to talk about that person. But I think for Black people, the larger implication is how we as a community talk about women, talk about sexual assault survivors, whether they be men or women or non-gender conforming, that we talk about all of these things in such a way that's forward thinking, that we begin to shift how we talk about that, the bigger issue. And then another thing that I believe also is that we have a big problem understanding that people who commit these crimes are loved, that in our families, in our communities, that there are people who have been ministers, people who are teachers, people who are just good neighbors, but have also victimized other people. And that to look at the human being as a full human being is a deeply important aspect of how we talk about each other as humans. We have to be able to see people as a whole human, and then we have to be able to hold that people accountable for that, regardless of what quote unquote good they have done.
Yes,
so I think
you're right.
that really disturbed me that we weren't able to have a productive conversation about that as a community, and that so that was disappointing to me.
Yes, it was.
Because it's much bigger than Bill Cosby, right?
Yes, it is. Yes.
If you have 1 in 4 women who experience sexual assault, 1 in 4.
Right.
And that's what's reported.
Yes.
And only and less than 5% are reported. So let's think about that for a second. If we have that many people who are being victimized, and that's just women, then this is a bigger conversation than Bill Cosby, correct?
Yes, it is. Yes, you're exactly right. Well, nice talking to you. I have to go, but nice talking to you. And you're doing a good job.
Oh, it was a pleasure, Tracy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
All right. So yeah, if you guys want to chime in, I mean, we weren't talking about BC, but I appreciate that question. But if you guys want to chime in and talk about what we're talking about, you're listening to The Source. I'm Aja Graydon Dancer. I'm filling in for Andrea Lawful Saunders, and you can call in at 215-634-8065. And we are again talking about the Olympics. And we are next up. We're going to be talking to Dr. Yaba Blay, and I'm really excited about this. If y'all have an opportunity to look her up, if you're sitting there listening to us talk about this, you should pull her up. She's pretty amazing. Dr. Yaba Blay, she's a PhD in Africana Studies. She's a scholar and an activist, and she is a huge content creator. She's a founder of the campaign's #PrettyPeriod, which talks about Black women loving themselves. Obviously colorism is a big issue in the Black community, and pretty period comes from that ridiculous statement that people make sometimes, like, oh, you're pretty for a dark-skinned girl. And so she came up with a campaign called Pretty Period, just to show the beauty and the diverse beauty of Black women. And she also came up with the campaign Professional Black Girl, which is celebrating Black women in their skin and how they show up however they like in the most professional and amazing ways that they do. She also focuses on her particular work, focuses on the lived experience of Black women and girls. And she is the author of One Drop, which is also shifting the lens on race, which again is about the experience of colorism and really putting that into the proper perspective. So I'm super excited about talking to her after our next break. But that leads me to talk about also going back to, the Olympics and that experience, to Raven Saunders. And I talked about her at the top of the show. What I loved about this, about what she did, if you didn't hear, she is a silver medalist for the shot put. And she is 25 years old. She's Black, she's gay. She's also protest after she won and put up an X, which meant intersections. She said, oh, one other thing she did was when she won, and I want to bring this up too, because I talked about Professional Black Girl, right? And so when Dr. Yaba Blay comes on here, she's going to really explain to you what that really means, because I know I have my perceptions, but I love her explanation. Anyway, when Raven Saunders won the silver medal in shot put, she decided that she was going to get her twerk on. She twerked during her celebration. And I know this is a big deal for y'all out there, because I know as a community, we got a whole lot of mixed emotions on twerking and dancing and hair and rap music and everything else. But I love the fact that she celebrated in her own way, in a way that us as Black women specifically dance and celebrate. And I think it was really awesome. And she decided to take that moment, like I said on the podium, to express that her identity, it intersects with so many different kinds of identities. And so it really pushes forward that there's a very diverse lived experience that Black women have. And to think that that conversation would happen simply because, and obviously it's happening all over the world and the country, but that it would be brought up at a moment like this during the Olympic Games. And I was really, really proud of her. And specifically because I have so many people in my life that find themselves in these intersections. I also wanted to add to that she also spoke about her experience with depression, and which puts her into the idea of mental health and mental illness. So that's another intersection that she's living through. Again, just continuing the thread of mental health and the conversation around mental health through these athletes. And so I thought about that quite a bit, and how we look at each other. And, earlier Joseph called in and he was saying some things that were, pretty intense. But we have to understand that there were some things he was saying that quite a few people in our community do believe to some degree. Maybe not as intense as what he was saying, but we forget sometimes that the Black experience is diverse, and that how Black women show up can bring along so many other aspects of Black life, whether it is sexual orientation, their mental health, their age. All of these things are things we need to understand and know about how we move forward and plan to be healthier individuals and look after one another. So I think it's really important that we take our key and our cue from these women and these athletes, that we understand what they're doing here is helping us to see ourselves. And that as we see ourselves, as we look out in our neighbors, our children, our family members, that we remember this moment, because this moment can really, really shift things if we allow it to. If we allow it to shift things, I really, truly believe that it can be done. Before we take a break, I do want to mention this to you guys in the news, just so y'all know, parents out there. I'm on here all week, and I just want you to know that tomorrow we're going to be talking about education. So I want to bring this up. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about educating Black children and all of the different options therein. And this would be a good opportunity to also mention to you guys that Philadelphia Public Schools are going back full time, and that the children will be wearing masks. So the mask mandate is officially up. That according to the Philadelphia Inquirer, that according to the Philadelphia Inquirer, that the students will be going back full time, and that they have to wear masks, and at-risk sports will not be happening. So I don't know if you guys are ready for that, but you know, what's happened during COVID-19 has really helped us to kind of reshape how we look at school. And so I'm really looking forward to having that conversation tomorrow. So please tune in and listen to us tomorrow, talk about education, and we'll be giving some updates on what the school district is doing and how the kids are going to be returning back to school. I'm really excited because I'll be talking with Dr. Kamika Royal, who specifically does work around a number of different issues concerning Black students. So I really encourage y'all to listen tomorrow, 1 through 4, as we talk about at 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., as we talk about that. And if you're just tuning in, I'm Aja Graydon Dantzler. I'm one half of the group Kindred the Family Soul. And we are filling in for Andrea Lawful Sanders. Speaking of Kindred the Family Soul, I'm going to do a little quick plug, if you will, if you guys can be patient with me. I am currently out performing and promoting my new album. My husband and I make up Kindred the Family Soul, and we have a new album that came out 2 months ago called Auntie and Unc. If you're watching online, you can see my little picture in the back. See, Auntie and Unc. I feel like I'm kind of an auntie at this point in my life. We've been doing this music for about 20 years. And so I have a bunch of, you know, my children around and my nieces and nephews who I feel, you know, I feel happy about that. Like I embrace the auntie title. I like it. It makes me feel like I know what I'm talking about, at least slightly anywho. But I want y'all to hang in there on the other side of this break. We're going to be talking to Dr. Yaba Blay, like I said, and we'll be talking about these here Olympics. And the women, the Black women, and how they have shown up and shown out. You're listening to The Source on WURD.
So many times we say to ourselves, I need to make a difference. Well, your chance is here. Center in the Park is holding a virtual volunteer event Friday, August 6, 2021 from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Advocate for those who can't, support those who can, and ensure all long-term care residents live with dignity and respect. Register for this Ombudsman event at info@centerinthepark.org. We all feel better when we do something that matters and when we do something with purpose.
As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where you can get barrier-free COVID-19 testing and vaccination this week. Tuesday, August 3rd and Thursday, August 5th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Deliverance Evangelistic Church, 2001 West Lehigh Avenue in Philadelphia. For more information, visit blackdoctorsconsortium.com. Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. The WURD Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio. Messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese. Exclusive articles and multimedia content and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio newsletter.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio.
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Everybody, you are listening to The Source on WURD Radio. My name is Aja Braden Dantzler. I'm filling in for Andrea Lawful Sanders. And she's going to be out for August. I'm going to be here Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday from 1 to 4 p.m. Today, we are talking about the Olympics and these Black women who have really, really done some amazing things and helped us to see some really important issues that affect us. Our next guest today is Dr. Yaba Blay, and she is on the line. Welcome, Dr. Blay.
Oh, hello.
Hello. You may have missed your very extensive introduction, but I do want to tell the people again, if you did not hear it, that Dr. Blay has a PhD in Africana Studies. She's a scholar activist. She's a producer, a content creator. She has created several important campaigns in social media to bring about the awareness of the greatness and beauty of Black women. And she is the author of One Drop, Shifting the Lens on Race. This is a very successful book that has been, talked about all over the country and the world, specifically talking about, our ideas about race and what, how we respond to colorism. And I'm really happy to have her here today because we are talking Black women. And I think you got your PhD in Black womanhood. So I'm happy to have you here on the show today. Welcome, Dr. Blay.
Thank you so much.
We were talking about the Olympics, and we know that, we're going to get right to it, that Black women have changed all of the talk. We have really just shown up and shown out. And we ended our conversation in the first hour about Simone Biles specifically, but we can bring up a number of Black women that have really stepped out there and let their voices be heard. So I would love to hear your thoughts on what happens when you're just so excellent that you just jump out there and restructure the whole damn system, just showing up as your authentic self. I mean, what kind of bravery does it take to do that? And so I just love to hear your thoughts on how you observed the situation with Simone Biles.
Well, I'm proud of Simone Biles, like so many of us are. And I think what may seem simple on the surface really took a lot for her, not just because she is a world-acclaimed athlete, but because she is a Black woman athlete. And being a Black woman in this world, more specifically being a Black woman in the context of white supremacy, we have to work twice as hard to get half as far, right? And so folks are already looking at us out the corner of their eyes. It almost seems like, and I'm all over the place, but when we think of the 4 or 5 different Black women's names we can call in the context of the Olympics, to me, it felt like folks were sitting back and looking for something to pick on, looking for a reason to give them a hard time, and still, they prevailed in the ways that they did. But for Simone to come out and be like, yo, I'm over it. I'm not doing this for y'all. Because what
not
happens
on today.
So many of us, right, when you come to be a representative, not just of your race, but of your race and your gender as a Black woman, that's a heavy load to carry. And sometimes you put yourself aside just so that you can represent that same for everybody else, because we all know how important it is, especially for little Black girls, to see themselves represented in the world. But, representation is not enough. And Simone's like, y'all not going to kill me, right? No. And so I'm proud of her for putting herself first and making everybody else deal.
Yeah, it was a collective moment of yes, ma'am. But only for a certain section of us. Obviously, some of the country decided that they had a number of different feelings about it. I want you to help us understand this. Help us understand the connection between like the historical context of Black women's bodies and these actions of these other folks with these athletes in the past weeks?
I mean, how do I say this simply in the context of a few minutes? You know, I'm always going to bring it back
I'm sorry
to white supremacy. You know, I'm always going to bring it back to white supremacy. I'm always going to challenge us and ask us to look at our relationship, not only to each other, but to ourselves and the broader system in the context of history. So we live in a context where our bodies have literally been for sale. We've only existed for the pleasure, for the enjoyment, for the success, economic and otherwise, of other people. So in so many words, who cares how you feel? Who cares about your body? Who cares about what it means to you? What does it mean to me? What does it mean to us? And so, I mean, we can look at the Olympics as a broader marketplace, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. And each nation needs its athletes to show up and represent. And so for the United States, Simone, you are a star. Naomi, you are a star. Sha'Carri, you are a star. We need y'all to show up and show out, regardless of the fact that as you are, take the titles off, take the medals off. As a Black person, you wouldn't get this level of respect in your home country. But for the sake of performance and for the sake of competition, we're going to put you out in this marketplace. We're going to put you up on this stage to show up and show out for us, not for yourself, but for us. And so I think the ways in which you're watching things play out, and that's why, again, I'm coming back to say I'm so proud of Simone for the way that she showed up for herself, is because we don't think about athletes as human beings, and we absolutely don't think of Black athletes as human beings. How dare you have an opinion? How dare you have a platform that you want to stand on? Your job is to run. Your job is to dance. Your job is to jump. Do your job. You know what I'm saying? And so I think it very much fits within that context. It's the relationship that white supremacy, the relationship that the United States, that the world has with Black bodies, that folks would actually get offended at the idea that you would put yourself first. And again, when I say white supremacy, I'm not just talking about white people, right? I'm talking about an ideology that has trained us to believe that what white people do and what white people need is superior to everyone else's actions and needs. And so when we're online and we're watching people, you know, throw their comments into the chat, they're not all white people.
No, they are not. No, they are not.
Some Black folks that feel some type of way and have something to say about what whomever should have, would have, and could have done. You know, the thing that really got me was the case of Sha'Carri Richardson, right?
Yeah, I was going to bring that back up. Please speak on it.
How many folks were online talking about, well, rules are just rules, and it's like Black people, the Blacks, TM. That's what we're doing right now? The rules are rules?
That's what we're doing. The rules are the rules.
Who made the rules? And for whose benefit? Think of the sister. I can't think of the sister. The swimmer who...
Alice Deering, is that the one with the swim cap?
With the swim cap, right? And so the idea that, well, we got to check this out because other athletes have never needed this. Well, who are other athletes? What have you established as the norm? You established the rules based upon white athletes' bodies. And we're talking about a global game, global competition. So what you're saying is that everybody else in the world has to conform to the needs and the structure of the white body. And we out here talking about the rules of the rules, and at the same time talking about Black Lives Matter, and at the same time putting up black squares, and at the same time talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm not going to cuss on your show, but we full of it.
Well, I like that you make the connection, because the connections are so super important. Prior to Sha'Carri Richardson, and you know, before the test, the blood test and the P test came back, when everyone was in the height of their excitement about her, it immediately had me thinking about, again, and I talked about this at the top of the show, how we treat Black girls with red hair and nails and wearing what they want to wear and looking the way that they want to look. Just weeks prior, we were, you know, talking about being, you know, ashamed of Black girls looking the way that they want to look in public.
But with the bonnet.
I ain't gonna listen.
We talking about bonnet
I don't want to get in no trouble. I done already put, we done not, but you know, I'm just saying whether it's bonnets or whether it is also too, like I said, you know, certain hairstyles, certain the way you wear your hair, whether it's natural, whether it's colored, whether you have long nails, short nails, what's considered professional. The reason why the conversation about these women athletes is important because this truly extends out into the experience that Black women have in the world, you know, trying to conform to these, you know, standards, quote unquote.
Every single day, and it reaches back into history. These aren't new conversations. Our grandmothers and great-grandmothers have always had to somehow try and conform to be seen. And in this moment, we have the luxury of just talking about professionalism. In their day, it was about whether or not they were civilized, whether or not they were human, because, again, the norm, right, was related to white bodies and white experiences on purpose, right? It's not about it being a fact. It's about what they constructed as fact. And everybody else had to get in line. In this moment, you know me, I was celebrating Sha'Carri, professional Black girl style, but I was also side-eyeing a lot of folks who were celebrating her because, like you, the question was, would you celebrate the Sha'Carri that's at the bus stop right now? Or would you side-eye her and wonder how she's going to get a job with orange hair? Would you allow your daughter to have orange hair, or would you tell her, no, baby, you can't do that because you're not going to get a job? Meanwhile, we on the TV, we're watching the TV, and we're watching Sha'Carri blow past everybody, and now all of a sudden this is our girl? It's almost like we have to wait for the mainstream to celebrate someone before we celebrate that someone, as if we don't have our own standards.
And our standards, centering our standards, is difficult work.
Absolutely.
You know, I it's a lot harder than it looks. It's like you said, I have four girls, and you and I know each other personally, so you know that I've said this to you offline. Is hey, it's all fun and games till the kid does it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's all fun and games till the kid shows up with it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think I think as parents, you know, as we have these desires and this thing that we want for our kids, the quote unquote best, the way that we, you know, want to protect them, that pushing back, does it also mean that there's a risk involved? You know what I mean? And that we have to be willing to do that to prioritize moving forward.
Yeah, that's a risk that many of us, it's a decision we have to make, right? It's a risk that many of us have to somehow see as worth taking, because the other side of it, you know, I was talking to a friend about this yesterday, in the context of what we might deem successful, what we might deem as professional, what we might deem as the quote-unquote best for our kids, what we don't do is sit back and challenge ourselves about how those assessments are also seated in white supremacy and what there is to be lost in that. So what it means to you as a parent, right, to give your child the best is to put them in a predominantly white school where very little of themselves, let alone their culture, will be talked about, let alone celebrated. Understand that that's tension, that's trauma, that's an experience that your child is going to also experience, but we've somehow come to believe that that's what it takes to be successful, and we're going to throw the other piece of it away. We're going to throw the trauma aside. So many of our children, so many of us, we are still struggling with our sense of identity because we've had to dance between multiple worlds, and as much as we want to say we're resistant, as much as we want to say we're anti-white supremacy, anti-racism, these things are deep-seated in our own lived experiences. We're struggling on a personal level about what these things mean, if that makes sense. So on the one hand, we want everyone else to check it, but what does success mean for us? On an individual level, what is the best for your child? For many folks, the best is absolutely not a predominantly black school. It's not a being around your people. The best is having quote-unquote exposure to white folks and what white folks do, because that's what's going to make you successful. But that success is going to come at a cost if you have to speak differently, if you have to walk differently, if you have to dress differently, if you have to ultimately, finally apologize for being black.
That's not the best for me.
Woo!
And I think
are y'all out
there?
Are y'all listening? Are y'all out there? Let me give y'all this number: 215-634-8065. Girl, I'm finna run around here and shout. Okay, what is the best? I want y'all to sit with that. What is the best?
Conversations. That's what's coming up in these comments. And that's why I'm just looking at folks like, okay, we playing by rules now. That's what we're doing. We telling black women what they would have,
and to think about the types of changes that we laud and celebrate happened because people broke the rules. Good trouble, that's been floating around.
Yep.
You got to get into the good trouble.
Last thing I'll say, and not to, I'm trying not to bring my whole self to your show, Agent. But at the end of the day,
I'm here for your whole self, though.
I'm also wanting to challenge us to recognize that at the end of the day and top of the morning, understand the sacrifice that these black women, these black people, these people of color are doing to represent this country. Because you on the screen making it seem like we all just get along. Meanwhile, those of us back home know that ain't true. So you'll kill us in the street, right? Mm-hmm. You will oppress us in all kinds of institutional and systemic ways, yet and still our black faces are on the TV representing this country. It is still this country.
Come on. I mean, I'll tick back to what you said just a few seconds ago when you talked about these predominantly white spaces. Please believe, for the most part, these particular sports that these women are in and excelling in are typically not spaces where you find many black people. So you have gymnastics, you have swimming, you have some, certain parts of track and field, where you don't see us. And so if that child has been cultivating that talent since they were very young, that means that they have been navigating those dual worlds since they were very young. Mm-hmm. And so there's a specific
and for many of them, they've normalized that trauma because folks keep telling them that's what you got to do to succeed. You got to eat it. And that's why it's such a big deal for Simone to say no more. You see what I'm saying? She's been doing it for so long. I read something somewhere that said the baby was competing with broken toes and all kinds, and still competing?
Still competing.
For this country?
Yes. And to be 100% honest, that kind of thing, the abuse of these athletes goes across color lines, because even as people talked about Simone Biles, they tried to use Carrie Shrug as, oh, well, this young white woman, she struggled, she pushed through. But the fact of the matter is that her career ended. Many of these careers have ended. And so what Simone did, as many black women do, was not only stand in the gap for other black women, but stand in the gap for all athletes, period. Okay? I want to say this to you guys. We have a couple of people holding online that want to talk. We're about to go into a quick break. Dr. Blay was gracious enough to give us this time. She's not going to be able to come back on the other side. So I just want to say thank you before you're able to move on with your day, Dr. Blay. We love you dearly. And you, girl, you came in here and preached the good preach.
Love you too. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We'll talk to our callers on the other side. Y'all come back. You're listening to WURD, The Source.
Hope Partnership Middle School offers a quality, subsidized independent school education to students and families in North Philadelphia. Located at 2601 North 11th Street, Hope offers small class sizes, personalized learning, a research-based curriculum, dedicated teachers, and a graduate support program, which supports students through high school graduation. They are currently accepting applications for 5th to 7th grade students for September. For more information, please contact them at info@hope-partnership.org.
Join WURD for the Summer of Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour. This year we celebrate West Oak Lane, Mantua, North, West, and South Philly. I'm Tiffany Bacon, and I'll broadcast live from a different neighborhood each Friday from 10 a.m. until 12 noon. Our next stop is South Philly at the Marian Anderson Rec Center, 740 South 17th Street on Friday, August 6th. Enjoy live performances, meet special guests, and stand with WURD. Be a part of the movement to amplify the voice of the Black community. Show your support and join or renew your WURD membership on site. That's the Summer of Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour at the Marian Anderson Rec Center from 10 a.m. until 12 noon on Friday, August 6th. WURD, showing love this summer.
The WURD Radio Neighborhood Love Tour is sponsored by Comcast and supported by Pico, Keystone First, and Ready Set Philly. Save the date. Thursday, August 26th for WURD Radio's annual Founders Day celebration, honoring the life of our founder, Walter P. Lomax Jr., MD. This year, we'll be both in person and virtual. Stay tuned to WURD Radio and WURDradio.com for more information. That's Thursday, August 26th for our annual Founders Day celebration. Exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on WURDradio.com, the WURD Radio app, or watch live on WURD TV via Facebook and YouTube.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio,
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Source. This is Aja Grayton Dantzler. I'm filling in for Andrea Lawful Sanders. She'll be out for this month, and I'll be here all week with you guys, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. We're here talking about the Olympics and these amazing Black women who have shown up and showed out and changed the conversation. We got some folks on the line. Is Madeline there? Madeline from Overbrook?
And thanks for taking my call.
Of course. How are you doing?
I am doing very well. And being about to enter my 88th year on October the 14th. You know, I've heard a lot, I've lived a lot, and I am so proud to see so many of our women involved, because that takes families who spend a lot of time with you, seeing that you get what you need. And then, of course, there's the thing with that doctor with her that really created a problem. But she did have the guts to talk about it. And that's very important, I think. And also the fact of being able to decide. I started watching it much closer since she was saying that when she started in her spin, and you've seen her spin? I mean, she comes out of there, and she does 4 or 5 quickly, 1, 2, 3, 5, and then makes a turn and goes over and starts again. When she hits the floor, she's done 9 or 10 different spins.
Yes.
It is just amazing. Absolutely. And she said that when her head wasn't there to tell her what it wasn't in her, to tell her what to do next, she felt so happy. You saw her land on that floor like that.
Yeah.
But, oh, my God. The woman is awesome.
She really is.
She has been outstanding, just really outstanding. I'm so very, very proud of her. And I do wish more of our parents had the time and the money to invest in us to do certain things. Like here in Philadelphia, you know, we have about almost 50 swimming pools not open because we don't have lifeguards. Our children need to know how to swim. And even the areas where they're open, they don't have swim classes. If you don't take your child to the Y, your child will not learn how to swim unless you teach them. Yeah. And so I'm hoping and praying, and I've been going to the meetings for Chef Recreation right here at 57th and Haverford, and anytime I get a chance to speak, to ask the parents to let that board know that we must have classes for our children to swim. If you don't teach them to do what they need to do, we are left behind the 8 ball. And that's where we got this thing now. Our proficiency level is like 30%. 70% went right on by us. We've got to have our better proficiency than that. know who has to do it? Parents, parents, parents. Will you send them to school, seeing if the homework is done? Now, last but not least, I believe I heard at some point in the last hour or maybe about listening to your children.
Yes.
Was it? Yes.
Yes, Dr. Janice Johnson Dias. She mentioned.
Yes.
Yes.
It is so important. And I had just come across from Dr. Lucille Ijoy. You know Dr. Ijoy? Well, Dr. Ijoy had printed, and she had sent me this stuff, and we've been trying to get something going for our children here on creative discipline. You know, not screaming, not hollering, listening to them, letting them know how much we love them, how important they are, and that they can do whatever they choose to do, all that kind of stuff. So and as we kill each other more, the more we kill, the more I think we just need to start it. Go to the corner, scream, get that child up in the morning and hug them and let them know you love them and blah, 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 blah.
Absolutely. And then loving and hugging on the ones that don't have parents available to do so. Thank you so much, Madeline, for hitting us up today. I appreciate you calling.
Thank you, Dawn.
I really, really do. I think we have Thelma on the phone from New Jersey. Is Thelma still there?
Yes, I'm here. Yes. How are you?
How you doing? Welcome to the Source.
Yes, thank you. I'm enjoying your show. It is so
I'm happy.
Yes. Well, Madeline brought up about the swimming for the young people is one of my pet peeves that I just really feel as though it's mandatory that all children learn how to swim. Because it's just like walking, you should be able to learn how to swim. And so that was good that she brought that up. And also, I wanted to mention that with Simone Biles, she doesn't really have to prove anything to anybody, because what she did last year, should be enough to take us for the rest of the century. And so I'm really proud of her, and I believe that the double standard for black women over white women and white people and black people. There's definitely a double standard in how the comments are coming towards who they are, how they look, and when things go wrong with them. So, and that's a sad situation. And to put icing on the cake, I think that, black women are so special that we're not in competition with anybody else but ourselves. And I believe that a lot of us are going natural with our hair, and we're learning and being creative with our dress and our makeup, that we are the creators of new innovations.
Yes.
And, yes, we are great creators. Cooking, we're the one that discovered the soul food, to put that out. And the other thing is, the icing on the cake is that more black men should be trying to stick with the black women more, going out with these white women, which I don't have I don't have no problem with it, but I think too many of the black men are going out with these white women, and the black women are just put aside. So I don't know.
I think it always ends up a bit complicated, because at the end of the day, we do struggle so much with what is considered the beauty standard. And so, much like Dr. Blay was saying, that it takes some time and effort to center what we believe is the standard. So I do understand what's at the heart of what you're saying. Absolutely. Outside of, people loving whoever they would like to love, there is certainly an issue that we have within our community about beauty standards. I want to, before we get to this break, get into this last caller. Thank you so much, Thelma, for coming and calling and chiming in. I appreciate you today.
And thank you too.
Thank you. I think we have Don from West Philly. Is he still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Hey, Don. How you doing?
Hi. I think part of the problem we fail to realize, we got 30% in our community that's eating us up from the inside. You know, I look back on my life. We're too busy. We got a culture. It's all about learning how to survive around other black folks. If you really sit down and think about it, you know, from the age of 5, I had to learn how to box and everything, just be able to live around black folks. And we got this culture. Everything is about learning how to live around other black folks because we've been taught from the crib to be rude and nasty to one another. And we all trying to get this respect, and we disrespecting one another. And this 30% in our community is causing all this problem. You know, and we blame everything on everybody else, but some of the stuff is us, man. We just make bad decisions. And we keep blaming everybody, and we fail to take the responsibility, man. And like, until we start saying, look, 50% of the stuff is us, man. You know, right now we've got a situation where they're hiring blacks, and I go into the store, they disrespectful to the customer. This is something new. I ain't never been into a time where an employee can be disrespectful to customers. Now we got that going on in our community, and nobody won't tell them to stop. Nation Islam, y'all got their voice. Stop supporting the perpetrators and protect and support the victims, man. You know, it's getting so far out of hand. There was a time we said, okay, we're going to use the N-word. We're going to let them use the N-word. Now the N-word is used everywhere. I'm sitting in the park. I don't care if it's white children, Asian children, Latino children. You got brothers, grown grandmoms, and men using the N-word all in front of everybody. You know,
I think you know what you're saying absolutely has a lot of merit. At the end of the day, we have complex issues that we're dealing with, and many of these issues at the root, they are issues that come from things that have been imposed on us. And so we do have to think about how, and I think we spend a lot of time as a community thinking about what we can do, what we can enact and affect on our own. But obviously you're going to have to hit this thing from many different levels. So I do understand the sentiment of what you're saying in terms of that we do have to not only be very well versed on what kind of systems we're coming in contact with, but just how much they affect us. And when they affect us, that we're able to identify what it is that's affecting us and move forward and make the choice to push back on it. And we talked about that with Dr. Blay, about, you know, just about how we view our young people and saying, hey, I know the reason I think this is because of white supremacy, but now I have to decide to think differently. I need to decide that I'm going to do differently. So I do absolutely hear your point, Don. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you.
You know, you guys, if you want to chime in some more, we're going to be here for another hour. And next hour, we're going to have another really great conversation with a parent of a student athlete as well. We're 215-634-8065. You're listening to The Source. Y'all come back when we come back.
Berger Montague is a Philadelphia-based plaintiff's class action law firm committed to helping Philadelphia's black community. Berger Montague maintains a strong commitment to fostering diversity and equity throughout the legal community and in society in general. In 2020, Berger Montague filed a pro bono case against the IRS when they refused to send COVID-19 stimulus checks to federal benefits recipients with dependent children. Thanks to Berger Montague, people across the United States were able to obtain dependent benefit checks that they desperately needed. Berger Montague supports WURD Radio and Philadelphia's black community. For more information about Berger Montague Law Firm, please call 215-875-3033 or email at info@bm.net.
The Mattress Man is a second-generation family-owned mattress specialist business since 1988. Open 7 days a week, located at 7421 Stanton Avenue. The Mattress Man discounts Serta, memory foam, orthopedic, and ComfortTech mattresses every day. You deal directly with the owner, Julian, to ensure you get the best price and best service. The Mattress Man offers same-day delivery on most models to most areas. Ask about the WURD discount. Call 215-424-5550.
Want the latest in Word swag? Check out the shop tab on WURDradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WURDradio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk Media. Be there this Friday at the Summer Freedom Neighborhood Love Tour and stand with WURD Radio to amplify voices of the black community as a digital forward member for as low as $5 per month. And receive a free gift for signing up. See you on Friday and join Tiffany Bacon, 10 a.m. till noon at the Marian Anderson Recreation Center, 740 South 7th Street, or visit WURDradio.com. Start or renew your forward membership today.
In the world we live, it'll have you feeling you ain't worth a damn. If you don't have that thing, if you don't go that place, if you don't make that deal, if you don't know that face, oh. Now if you look around you, it's easy to see so much love surrounding you. You can find joy in the moment, savor and hold it. That's all that's ever been important to me. Oh, these are the best things. All I want to share. These are the best things. I don't want to miss a minute. All the moments wrapped up in it. The gift of life that's chosen just for me.
Water receding from the floods of yesterday, slow to drain any puddles they remain right before your eyes.
This is Aja Graydon Dantzler, and I am one half of Kindred the Family Soul. That was a little bit of a preview of our current album, a single from our current album called Best Things. So it would not be right if I was on here for 4 hours and then give y'all a little bitty plug. If you have a streaming service of any sort, you can go and check out the whole album. It's called Auntie and Unc, and that is called Best Things. I welcome you back to The Source. Right now, I am filling in for Andrea Lawful Sanders, and she will be out in August, but I will be here all week, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, 1 to 4. And we're going to be talking about a number of things. I want to give you guys a quick preview of what we're going to be talking about tomorrow, so y'all can get y'all's questions together and really plan to be here. There was an announcement today that schools are going back full time at the end of the month here in Philadelphia. And this entire year has really, in a lot of ways, restructured how we think about school. So I really wanted to take an opportunity to have a really good conversation about educating Black students. And tomorrow, that's what we're going to be talking about on the show. We'll be having quite a few guests on who have background in understanding this fully, and I'm really excited to have them on. So please tune in tomorrow. As for today, it's been pretty popping all day. We've been talking about the Olympics. But more than the Olympics, what we've been really talking about is how so many of the Black women athletes have caused us to think about and contemplate a myriad of different issues that face Black women out in the world, and that the conversation about these athletes is important because it really does reflect the experiences that we're having and how we, structure society and how society needs to change and what we need to do as Black people and how we view Black women and how we view their excellence and the labor that Black women put out. And so for us, it's been a really defining moment. And I wanted to talk about that today. So we had the opportunity earlier to speak with in the first hour was Dr. Janice Johnson Dias, who is the author of the book Parent Like It Matters. She also co-founded the Grassroots Community Foundation that works specifically with women and girls. And some of the things that she said were pretty powerful. She talked about trying to eliminate the word strong from your vocabulary as you begin to kind of nurture and talk to young female women athletes, young women athletes, and how you structure this conversation about what it means to be excellent and what it means to be successful in sports and beyond. She also talked about centralizing the humanity of us, and that as we do, accomplish these great things, that we're careful not to dehumanize ourselves by, looking at ourselves as superhuman, as able to push through any and everything. And that this does a lot of harm for Black women in real time. We talked about the experience with Serena Williams and how she's looked at as being so strong, and that oftentimes even in a medical situation, that Black women are not believed. They're not believed when they are in pain. They are not believed when they are suffering. They are not believed and given empathy or space. And in order to prove that they deserve this type of empathy and space, they have to then disclose so much of their personal experiences. You have to tell, hey, I'm a sexual assault survivor, or hey, my parent was on drugs, or hey, I just experienced a death in the family, just to humanize each other. And I thought that was really powerful. She also talked about the fact that as we are raising the next generation of Black women athletes and Black women, period, Black children, boys and girls, and gender nonconforming children, that we talk to them and listen. And we had a caller, Madeline, that called in. She said she said she was 84 years old. And we thank God for her wisdom, because she agreed also in that there is a lot of interaction with elders that must happen, whether it be parents or community members, that we listen to our young people and that we keep those lines of communication open, and that we are not so quick to chime in, and that we don't live vicariously through their excellence. And so I found that to be one of the most powerful things that was discussed during that conversation. And in the second hour, we had an opportunity to speak with Dr. Yaba Blay. And she is, of course, a PhD in Africana Studies. She is an author. She is a content creator and producer, and has, created quite a few platforms to celebrate the humanity and the excellence of Black women. And we talked with the caller Thelma earlier, and she talked about how Black women innovate across the board, whether it be in fashion, whether it be in sports, whether it be in music, whether it be in food, and that we innovate all over the place, but yet we are not allowed to reap the benefit of that. And even when we do, we are not allowed the space to be human beings as well. And so I think that part of that conversation was also pointing out and understanding the systems that are in place and how they function to center standards that don't actually apply to us. And that when we are so great that we have to center a standard that we create, then we get beat down. And so we decide for ourselves what is the best. I loved that. That really touched me as she spoke about that part of it, is what is the best? As we think about what's the best thing for us? What is the best way to present yourself? What is the best school to go to? What is the best environment to live in? And being careful how we align the best with what is closest in proximity to whiteness. And that we are watching ourselves and recentering ourselves as much as possible, but also acknowledging that that is very, very difficult. That in a world where moment after moment, whether it be television, the world, whether it be any other systems that we come in contact with, that we're constantly getting these messages. And so to push back takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of effort, because even as Black people, we can be a part of pushing forward and holding up white supremacy. Even us. We can be the first to come out and be heavily critical of each other, hurt each other, and say, hey, no, the rules are the rules. You got to do this because this is how you get ahead. And although we want to be excellent, we have to be careful whose standards we are holding as what is the definition of excellence. And so Dr. Blake kind of left us with that gem, and I thank her for it, because we had another caller, Don, who called in, and he really spoke about that as well, that as we are willing to and understand that the systems in place are the true enemy, that we also have to make choices and we have to decide who we're going to be in this moment. And so I was deeply touched by that conversation as well, because, you know, we're not placing the blame on everyone else, but we are understanding that all of this is a delicate dance, a dance that's been going on for hundreds of years and that's going on all over the world. So even as we acknowledge the challenges that Black women who are representing the United States in the Olympics are having, we know also that Black women are representing the country of Jamaica, and that Black women are representing Puerto Rico, and that Black women are representing Colombia, and Black women are representing all at the UK, and that these challenges are challenges that we are experiencing across nationality, across affiliation and teams and countries, and that this opportunity at the Olympics allows us to see and allows us to acknowledge that on the world stage, what happens and how we view Black women is very, very similar, whether it be about our hair fitting under a swim cap, whether it be about whether or not we want to stand or kneel for the national anthem, whether it's about how safe we can be and how we can preserve our mental wellness, whether it's about how we deal with grief and whether or not we are able to partake in coping mechanisms that are socially acceptable, but not in the sports world. That whether it's that we acknowledge the different aspects and the intersections of our identities which may be youthful, which may be sexual preference, which may be the sexual identity, which may be whether or not we are disabled. All of these things come into play for Black women across the board and across the world. And so, again, the Olympics ends up a space where we get to talk about ourselves in a manner that we don't often get to. And who would have thought? Who would have thunk it? Anyway, if you want to chime in on this conversation again, you can call in at 215-634-8065. And if you're just tuning in, I'm Aja Grayton Dantzler. I'm filling in for Andrea Lawful Sanders, and she'll be out for the month of August, and I'll be here on Monday and Tuesday and Thursday. Well, today, Monday. I keep saying Monday, but today, Tuesday and Thursday. So I really hope you guys are able to join me throughout the week as we kind of dig into some of these subject matters. I, for one, have been pretty excited about, what this means. And after being at home and the COVID-19 crisis and thinking about that, it has brought up so many of the issues that don't necessarily lay dormant, but it has amplified the things that we've been talking about for quite some time. And for me, I feel like this is a huge opportunity for us as a community. And we have a lot, we have a lot to go into. I also want to mention to you guys, I know usually on this week, you guys will get an update on what's happening just in the city of Philadelphia. So as you guys are getting your comments together, I just want to make sure we cover a few things. Again, Philadelphia Public Schools are going back full-time at the end of the month. It is already decided. They will be in the building on August 31st, full-time. They were saying that they may make vaccination is mandatory for staffers, but they're not quite sure the legal ramifications of that. So that is something that's still in the works. Dr. Haidt did make it clear that they want to make sure that the kids are very safe and that they're exploring the legality of all of these things before making a move. And again, they want the children to come back safe and do whatever it is they need to do to keep children safe. That's something I would love for you guys to call in about tomorrow as we do discuss education. And we'll be talking about that as well, maybe giving you guys some options and making sure that we talk about the options for parents in addition to sending their kids back full time. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow, so make sure that you tune in. I think we have a caller. We got Viola from Delaware on the line. Hi, Viola.
Hi, how are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
Oh, I'm excellent too. I'm just glad to hear you there. I know your name. I've heard interviews with you about you with other hosts and all, but I'm, one of Andrea's regulars, so I thought I would just call. I did send a little message on Facebook saying that I welcome you and I'm glad you're there. And
well, thank you so much. I appreciate that support.
I looked at the Olympics last night. I've been looking at them off and on. And, back in the day when we, not me particular, but when we as a whole made fun of Gabby Douglas's hair.
Come on.
And I'm a hairdresser. And I said to my daughter, I said, if I didn't have anything to do with, well, I didn't really, but if I had a way to travel with those sports teams to make sure that their hair looks good, I would do it just because I know what they need and how we have to sometimes volunteer for things. I wouldn't have been looking for no pay whatsoever. And the couple of times that I saw, Simone Biles, and her hair was a little out of place, and that was the first thing I thought about. I said, oh, my gosh, I wish I could just, be there or give them some pointers in the sense, But we can be so critical of our own, very critical. And I enjoyed what the lady said. The first was it Dr. Johnson Diaz?
Yes.
I've been called strong when my mother passed away, when I had my breast cancer, and they said, oh, Vi, you're strong. And know what I would say to them? What's strong? What is strong?
Yeah.
And because maybe I took it differently than what they would have done, but loss is loss, and things that you go through, it's not so much as being strong, it's just knowing how to handle it in the sense that, these are things that you have to walk through life about. And I was just blessed when one lady said, I think I heard on the program earlier, that it's good when we had our grandmothers. My mother passed away at the age of 49 from breast cancer, and I got it 3 years later. But I thank God that I had my grandmother there until she was 85 years old. So, and I have 4 daughters, the same as you, 51, 45, 42, and 36.
Come on.
And I have a son. So I was born in 1947. But, my thing is that I talk about my breast cancer because I want people to know that when you find that lump, go see about it right away. Because I took no chemotherapy and no radiation, and I know I may sound repetitious to some when I call, but sometimes there may be someone out there that might have not heard what I said based on the fact of, what I had to go through. But I just feel as though that I'm happy to see, because I called my grandson, he's 16, he's in Virginia, and I asked him, was he looking at any of the sports? Oh, no, my mom, I like the snowboarding. Well, you know what? You need to be looking at these black folks running and jumping and doing and all. I wish he had been at my house because he would have been sitting in my room looking at those sports with me, because it's important that we watch each other and know that sometimes it crosses our mind that we may not be able to do that, but then it crosses our mind on another end and say, wow, maybe I should do that, And I think one of my distant cousins, she just left yesterday with the Philadelphia Express. She's a track, person, and she's done well, and she's a cousin. Her grandfather is my first cousin, so that's how far back the line goes. But, it's so many things that we really have to talk about and have a good understanding of why we are where we are. And
for sure.
I'm enjoying you, and I will be listening if I don't call again tomorrow. But I love the educational portions because most of the time you have the right people on there. And I have 2 grandsons that are due to go back to school come September. And I really don't know exactly what their mother's going to do as far as wearing a mask or keeping them on virtual. And I'll tell you, my 2 grandsons, 16 and 11 years old, virtual was not good for them. I'll put it that way.
I think there's quite a few parents who have experienced quite a bit of a nightmare. And so this has been an ongoing conversation throughout the pandemic. So we look forward to kind of digging in to that, and then also like a broader conversation about how and what's best for Black children and just across the board, because it's a big conversation to have. So I hope you do get a chance to tune in tomorrow and listen to that conversation as well.
I surely hope that everyone or somebody out there watch Mr. Soul ! Because I get it on CBS, so I didn't have to look at it on HBO. But I looked at it twice. But I tell you, it is fantastic because it's my era. The other lady that said she was 84. I can't think of her name right offhand. Madeline Dunn. But it was a fantastic show, and I recommend that if you can get it and watch it, you need to watch it. I don't care what age bracket you are, because it was so interesting to see where we were at that time and what they did based on the fact of music and the things that Mr. Hazlitt brought forward. You know, it was a fantastic show. So,
wonderful,
but I welcome you, and I'm going to try my best to make sure I listen tomorrow. The good part about it is that because I'm not totally sitting in front of the Facebook, I got a few things done today.
Okay.
So you have to kind of prepare yourself when you go to Facebook because you want to interact with the things that people are saying. But, there's times when you can't get your dishes done or your laundry done or scrub your floor because we're in tune with Andrea, and I would be in tune with you, but I'm not home right now. I'm in my car waiting for someone else to come home from their job. So,
Understood.
hang in there.
I thank you, Viola, for calling in, and I feel honored that one of the show regulars called in to talk to me. I appreciate you calling in. We actually have and I appreciate your opinions and your words. We have another caller here, Kimberly from Delaware. How you doing, Kimberly?
Hi. First of all, I would like to say I am such a huge fan of you and your husband.
Oh, thank you.
And yes, I just love everything with you guys, the intimacy that you put into the music, everything. I love it. But I just wanted to really comment on the strong piece that we've been talking about, how, it's always like, be strong. So as a mother of 3, I moved back up here, back home in Philly, but now I'm in Wilmington, raising my children because their father, just chose not to be in life. And it's been so many times people like, oh, you're so strong. How do you do it? And I'm like, that's not a compliment. It really is not a compliment. So, and I'm so glad that she said strong, we should not be using it. And I disagree. I really agree on that part. So I just wanted to kind of chime in on that because when you hear somebody saying, oh, you're so strong, I'm ready to cry because I'm like, I don't want to be strong or a superwoman. I want to be able to know that I'm doing the right job. I don't want those labels because I don't feel strong. I don't feel supported. I don't feel superwoman. But I'm superwoman powers or whatever. Excuse me. But I made it through. My children in 2019 and 16. But it's just that word all the time would discourage me more than anything. So I do agree with kind of taking that word away. So,
I think that we definitely can find some other words and some more descriptive ways to uphold ourselves and to support and encourage each other without doing things that will ultimately harm us and keep people from seeing us as human beings. So I thank you for calling in, Kimberly. I appreciate your words today. I encourage everybody to stand with WURD, the only Black-owned talk radio station in Pennsylvania. Did you know that you can join the Forward Movement and amplify voices of the Black community as a digital member for as low as $5 a month? Visit WURDradio.com or call 215-425-7875. We need your support. We need you to show your support. Join and renew your Forward membership today. We appreciate you guys. We're going to take a quick break. And on the other side, we're going to be talking with Melissa Lawson about raising scholar athlete children. See y'all later. You listen to The Source.
As a community service, WURD Radio and the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium wants to keep you informed about where you can get barrier-free COVID-19 testing and vaccination this week. Tuesday, August 3rd and Thursday, August 5th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Deliverance Evangelistic Church, 2001 West Lehigh Avenue in Philadelphia. For more information, visit blackdoctorsconsortium.com. Stay informed and stay well with WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD.
You're listening to The Source on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Hey everybody, this is Aja Graydon Dantzler. I'm filling in for Andrea Lawful Sanders. I just am too thrilled to be here today on The Source, talking about the Olympics, talking about Black women and their performance at the Olympics and how they have encouraged us and in many ways kind of forced us into conversation about some really important aspects of Black life. And it has really taken the world by storm. Today on the phone, we have Melissa Lawson, who is an educator. She's an author. She's an athletic administrator for Philadelphia Public Schools. She's a high school counselor, and she's a mother of scholar athletes. In fact, her children are gymnasts. So very much a part of the conversation that we've been having today. So welcome, 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 Melissa Lawson. How you doing?
I'm good. Hi, how are you?
I'm excellent. So, like I said, I've been trying to be professional all day, but I know all these women. They're all awesome. So, you know, we got to be professional to introduce, but yes, these are all women who I know very well, and I think they're awesome people. But again, I think you are positioned to have such an amazing take on this. I want to start by saying you posted on Facebook. We'll just start here. You posted on Facebook, which I thought was really interesting, about how you observed the response of men when Simone Biles withdrew from the competition, and how it immediately started a comparison across sport, so comparisons to, let's say, football or basketball, and it also started a comparison across gender between women and men. And so what you were speaking to was really kind of clearing up how these things could not be compared. So I would love for you to speak to the audience about that experience, what you observed and what was your response.
So, yes, once I started scrolling through Facebook after Simone had, pulled out, I realized there is a narrative here, and it's problematic. Ultimately, it really looked like they looked at Simone as some sort of general athlete. And gymnastics is not a general athletic sport. It's not a ball sport. And that's the problem. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, they were like, well, LeBron, he wouldn't have pulled out of he wouldn't have pulled out of the championship. He wouldn't have let his team down. They also said the same thing about, Tom Brady. But ultimately, these are not the same. Simone Biles is a gymnast. She's not a basketball player. And you can miss a layup. You can have a bad game as a basketball player. Your head cannot be in it. But if your head is not in it as a gymnast, you could have a catastrophic injury. It's not the same.
Yeah. And I think it's important to be clear. These sports are very different. And what happened to her, I would love you to also talk about what actually happened to her and what was the condition that happened. I've heard it described as twisties. I've heard it described a few different ways. Are you aware of this, or do you know what this is? Because I think we really need to be clear, outside of the broader messaging, I think we need to be clear, like you said, about the difference in the sport and how knowing and understanding the sport and your body is so important to being safe.
That's one of the key factors. As I'm explaining this to people, gymnastics and body sports, so to speak, are mostly mental, and then the physical follows. So if you're not in the mental headspace, so the twisties is simply getting lost in space. So you're basically blanking out. You can't remember the skill. And so when your body goes to perform the skill, your mind is telling you it can't follow. So ultimately, that happens often in this type of sport. Like, my kids are competitive cheerleaders, but a large part of it is tumbling. So it's more like the floor exercises in gymnastics, right?
Right.
But if their brain is not telling them they can do a certain skill, then they can't do it, and then they're instructed to not do it. So they don't go out there and essentially land on their head and have a catastrophic injury, end up in the ER, incapacitated, whatever the case may be. You can't, if you're not in that headspace, your brain will not allow you to physically perform that skill.
I think, and that's so important to understand, because the safety of young people in particular, when they are involved in sports, is really important. Being able to do what is required, but do it in a safe way. My son played Pop Warner, and, oftentimes, you would hear people saying, I've heard different coaches say, oh, this team or that team, they're not teaching those boys how to block properly, or they're not teaching them how to take a hit properly, and they're setting them up for injury. And so as kids are learning these things, they have to be really, as parents, really watchful, I'm sure, about how they learn and who is coaching them. I would love to know, with you being in kind of unique position as an educator and as a parent, how does that perspective make you unique, and what are the things you think parents need to really understand from both sides of this thing?
So I think one of the things that parents need to understand is that they have to listen to their children. Like, you can want things for your kids, greatness, and you can want them to do certain things, but if a child is coming to you saying, I am unable, I am incapable, I'm not feeling it, or this hurts, like, no matter how much, like, if you played the sport or you have this idea that they're going to the NBA, the NFL, the Junior Olympics, whatever the case may be, if they're telling you it hurts, if they're telling you I am physically incapable, it's not worth the push, because ultimately they will be burned out, and then they will not continue on. And if they do continue on, it could be to their detriment. And I do want to point out something you said about Pop Warner football. Ultimately, with this particular generation of athletes, probably about 6 years ago, the NFL helped to implement something called heads-up football, because too many athletes were getting concussions, and ultimately younger people were learning the game of football wrong, and they were getting catastrophic head injuries. So they have adapted for those young people. The adaptation for gymnastics is a little different. If you can't, you have to dumb down the skill or not perform it. It's like all or nothing. And so that's kind of different. You can make some safety adjustments for football or even basketball, but not really gymnastics.
And so that really ups the ante as we are talking about this decision. And even across sport, it ups the ante, because what it says ultimately is that you know your body and you know your particular discipline. And we need to be able to trust you. And if we can trust you as a child, we need to trust you as an adult. And the trust level that people have for Black women, and we already know this, as it was necessary even this year to come up with campaigns, trust Black women, listen to Black women. These are all things that we've
Black
seen.
women.
Protect Black women. These are all things that we've seen outside of the sports world. And so we're seeing that these things need to be implemented at this level, even when you're dealing with young people. So this goes a lot deeper than just a saying. I think a lot of people get caught up in the conversations that we have on social media and, oh, that's just a hashtag, or that's just this, or that's what the young people are saying, or this, that, and other. No, these things are coming into the national conversation because they need to be implemented in a personal level, in how you interact with the young people in your life, how you allow coaches to interact with the young people in your life, in your community,
and I think,
at your school.
I think ultimately, though, this goes beyond protect Black women. I think ultimately the conversation really is because men have not given themselves the mental space to deal with these things.
Mm-hmm.
There are countless number of young boys, young men who have felt this level of pressure, who really couldn't go, who really couldn't do it, and pushed themselves because somebody told them they couldn't have these feelings. It took Michael Jordan's father to die, and then maybe about 2 years later he walked away from the game. He had to clear his head. He went and played golf. He went and played baseball. He did some other things and then came back to the game. But if he had really addressed that when his father died then and said, I need to take a step back, instead of ultimately being so pressured and then looking like his head wasn't in the game. That's what they kept saying. His head's not in the game.
Yeah.
Well, no, his head's not in the game. His father just was murdered. And y'all need to give him that space to deal with that. And young men need to accept that if this was LeBron, if this was Tom Brady, they could have the space to mentally deal with these things, but they see that as weak. And that's why women are at the forefront of this conversation, because we are showing that it's not weak to take care of yourself mentally.
Come on. And that's the pressure that athletes in particular, because we call them things like warriors. We call them gladiators. You know what I'm saying? We call them these names and we don't understand that, they feel this pressure to be resilient, to be strong, because that's tied into success, excellence, and the expectations of others. And so as we, accept that, we understand that we're putting a whole population of young people at risk. And, and obviously, like you said, it goes beyond protect Black women. But even as you're talking about the whole population of athletes and people at risk, we know that who ends up being the most at risk are the people that fall at the bottom of that totem pole in terms of, being marginalized and whatnot. And so we just, we're overall trying to understand how to change the language about the way we speak about and to athletes, about who they are and what they are, and that we value them and them being here with us more than their performance. And we talked about this earlier in the show, that Simone Biles came out and tweeted, basically, this was the first time in her life that she had not tied her self-worth to her ability to perform on the mat.
And she doesn't need to. And it's what I keep telling people. They're like, this is the Olympics, and if she calls herself the GOAT, she should be able to go out here and overcome. I said, first of all, she didn't have to step on the mat to be the GOAT. She is the most decorated female gymnast of all time. There was no even need for her to be at the Olympics in real life, but she chose to go, and unfortunately her mind would not allow her to push through, and that's fine, because at the end of the day, she's still the GOAT. She's even more of a GOAT for standing up for herself and her mental health.
And making way also, how gracious it was in the long run to make way for several other of her teammates to shine. And one of her teammates making history.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I keep telling, but that's the key here. When the narrative from the men is she's letting her team down, but what I keep telling them, The difference between the football team and a basketball team is that any one of her in gymnastics, all of them are Olympic gymnasts. Any one of them can step in and do her rotation. That can't happen. There's not 20 LeBrons or 11 LeBrons on a team that could step in and if he sat down, there wouldn't be 52 other Tom Brady on the Bucks. Like in this case, an Olympic gymnast is an Olympic gymnast, and anyone can do these skills. They're all there because they're all capable.
Right. And that makes sense. Do you think that this entire experience is going to help us redefine what it takes to be a champion?
Not for Ben, it won't. I mean, I'm just keeping it real. Men will still look at women as less. I mean, look at the WNBA. Like, I mean, Jesus Christ. Women will never be revered in a championship way. And even looking at Serena Williams, amazing, great, but men talk about her terribly. So it doesn't matter, for how great we ascend athletically. We are still not going to be as superior as men athletically. They will never accept that.
And I think that's what that is one of the reasons why this continues to be a bigger conversation than just sport, a bigger conversation than just Olympics, a bigger conversation than just these last few weeks. It becomes a conversation about how we view one another and what it means to be what it means to see people as human beings, but also what it means to celebrate them for what they're capable of. And you cannot have that conversation without breaking down some of these larger questions of white supremacy, of misogyny, of, prioritizing mental health, access to mental health care. And I mean, at this point, to know that something like this happens, you would think that they would have mental health care as a part of, or as an active part of what's happening with the Olympics and what's happening as these athletes are there. And I should hope, or at least I hope that will be the case in the future. And maybe we'll see a lot more athletes. We've seen the athlete activists, flag being run, that we'll see more of these people move forward and change some of these, some of the realities that athletes have to deal with during this time period. And I said, as we look at it, then we start to look at it, how do we deal with this when they come home too? And for all of us, for that matter.
But look we're talking about the Olympics, who kind of, particularly the gymnastics committee, allowing all those young girls to be sexually assaulted by this doctor, and Simone Biles being one of them. And then she is one of the only ones on this Olympic team right now who came back. And so that could be a trigger for her. Showing up at the Olympics after having been through this ordeal over the last, Olympics with the last group of Olympians that she was there with, just showing up could be an ordeal. I mean, you never know what's a trigger for somebody mentally, especially when trauma is concerned. So, I just want people to understand, like, I feel, the karma that the tennis player had when he spoke about how she needed to be mentally strong, and then he had a meltdown.
And he had a meltdown and walked off.
And you quit the whole match, and you was in a doubles match. Like, this was totally different, right? So
he actually did abandon his teammate.
Right. You literally walked off. Okay, this is not what she did. So at the end of the day, this is, again, men, him having this thought process that men are mentally stronger, and then you have a breakdown because you're not realize that you're not.
I think that's profound. And especially when you start talking about sexual assault survivors. And that has been a big conversation outside of the Olympics for quite some years now, as we've seen a lot of high profile cases. Somebody called earlier and asked my opinion about Bill Cosby, not to get into that conversation. But, again, it's just amazing to me how many things have come up for these athletes that are part of a national conversation about us, about Black people, about Black women, and about people who have experienced trauma. But I thank you so much for coming on And we're going to take a break really quickly. I really appreciate you coming on the show, Melissa. You really shed a lot of light on this, and I hope the parents are listening. I want y'all to come back after the break, and we're going to continue to talk about this. If you want to call in, the number's 215-634-8065. You're listening to The Source on WURD.
Build skills needed for employment through the Philadelphia Skills Forward Initiative, a free upskilling program for workers displaced by the pandemic, those whose jobs are at risk for automation, and Black and brown workers. Complete courses focused on digital literacy, career management, and professional skills for a successful career. Get started today at chamberphl.com.
So, what's the asking price on this house?
You'd probably be more comfortable living somewhere else.
How long a lease is the landlord looking for?
Well, I'm sure you can afford to live here, but...
What are the schools like in this district?
Yeah, we have twins in the 5th grade.
This neighborhood isn't really for your kids. You know what I mean?
If you're Black, Latino, Asian American, or Middle Eastern, and a real estate agent or rental agent says anything like this, you know what it means. You're being discriminated against. Housing discrimination because of race, color, or national origin is against the law. If you believe you've experienced housing discrimination, contact HUD. Go to HUD.gov/fair housing. That's HUD.gov/fair housing. Fair housing. The law is on your side. A message from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Are you looking for a job? WURD has got you covered. We just launched a brand new job portal featuring jobs from some of Philadelphia's leading companies and arts organizations. If you go to the portal right now, you will see jobs from WURD Radio, the Kimmel Center, Her Foods, Always Best Care, and more. Apply for a job today. Go to our livelihood website at wordworks.com. That's WURDworks.com and click jobs.
You're listening to The Source
on WURD Radio,
96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Hey everybody, we're back. My name is Aja Graydon Dantzler. I'm filling in for Andrea Lawful Sanders, and this is The Source. Today we are talking about the Olympics. It's a big deal, every 4 years. And when I was a kid, certainly I used to sit at the, in front of the TV and watch, the Winter and Summer Olympics. So I would watch, my favorites would be the gymnastics, the track and field. In the Winter Olympics, I definitely loved the ice skating. And, I remember cheering on Debbie Thomas and Jackie Joyner-Kersee and all of these different athletes. And as a kid, I always was amazed at their abilities. But I don't know if I really thought about them as women, as people. And as many times as I've witnessed the Olympics, I have to say this is probably the first time that I have experienced the Olympics from the vantage point of being a Black woman and seeing the humanity of the Black women involved. And maybe it's because I've just gotten to a certain age and now it just means something different to me. But from the very beginning, even before the Olympics, as we watched Naomi Osaka, and then we watched Sha'Carri Richardson, and then we watched Simone Biles, and then we watched so many of the other stories that happened that weren't necessarily as big in the news, but that we got an opportunity to watch so much of that play itself out, that the way that I experienced that was so much different this time around. And so, again, if you want to talk about this and talk about your experience and what you think about these amazing athletes and how they've been able to push through and not push through, but how they have been able to prioritize themselves and change the way that we look at Olympic athletes, but change also the way that we think about Black women and their experience in the world. I would love to hear your thoughts. I want you to give us a call at 215-634-8065 and let's talk about it. We just got off the line with Melissa Lawson, who is a high school counselor and an athletic administrator, as well as an author and a parent. And she talked about the fact that, to be 100% honest, that the attitudes of men within these sports spaces, whether it be Olympics or outside of the Olympics, just does not value the humanity of women and does not see women as being elite athletes. And so when they decide to step out and prioritize themselves, it's not a conversation that they're comfortable with having or that they want to connect with, because they are very much engaged. What's the word I'm looking for? They're very much invested in these ideas about what it means to be strong, what it means to be a champion, what it means to push forward, and even though they're not quite ready. And I loved the example that she used about Michael Jordan and how he continued on with sports even when he was grieving. And it reminds me of Sha'Carri Richardson, who, when she finished her race, collapsed into the arms of her grandmother because she said she had just learned that her mother passed away just before she went out onto the track. And so we forget that these extremely talented athletes, that they are human beings, that they are experiencing life and processing a myriad of different emotions, and many times when they're still very, 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 very young. I think that what I'm walking away today with in many, many ways is the idea of listening. We had a caller call in early in the show, and he had some, ideas about what it meant to be a woman and how women should behave. And many of us disagree with him. But what I think is important about that is that we have to listen to women, listen to these athletes, listen to our young people. We need to listen to the people whose lives and whose experiences are centered in these, in something like the Olympic Games. But more importantly, we have to make these connections. The connections at the end of the day is what I am hoping all of you will get from this show and get from any show that we do this week, that the connections must be made, that even as we all want to engage in so much conversation about what's in the news or what's happening to someone famous or what's happening to an elite athlete, that these things have implications for our everyday lives. At the end of the day, and at the top of the morning, like Dr. Yaba Blaze said, at the top of the morning, we are looking at a drama that we can learn from and implement into our everyday lives. We can begin to look at ourselves in a much deeper way without immediately saying, oh, it's your fault. It's because you weren't strong enough. It's because you didn't step up to the plate. That no, this is a part of a thinking that keeps us from being excellent. It keeps us from experiencing our lives in the best way possible. Because when these athletes walk off that world stage, they only have themselves. When they walk off that world stage, they still have to deal with the body and the mind. And we have to love one another to the point where that is just as valuable as the way that they perform in the world arena. And so I want to go back to a little conversation that we were having earlier with Dr. Janice Johnson Dias, as she spoke about this experience with being disgusted by the fact that we must prove the fact that we are in pain, prove the fact that we should and deserve empathy, prove that fact. Think about that as we move forward, as you deal with other folks, as we begin to believe and listen to each other. There's a lot of distrust. I remember a caller, Don, called in earlier and talked about how much of his life was learning how to stay alive around other Black people. And that it was a very difficult thing. He had to learn to box just to survive. And so the love and empathy that we must have for each other in believing each other and not saying, oh, no, you're just being soft. Because I tell you this much, I hear a lot of young people, a lot of people talk about these young people today, they just soft. These young people today, they just not as resilient as we were. These young people today, they're not strong. And I'm telling you that we are not in short supply of hard young people. And here in Philadelphia, as we've had another night with violence, we know that we have more than enough hard young people. So let's learn how to speak to our young people and prioritize their mental wellness so that they can actually soften up. Softening up is a good thing. I want y'all to hang in there with us. You know, for the next couple of days, I will be here on tomorrow. And I want to make clear that tomorrow we're going to be talking about education. It's a big overarching topic. I know you guys are going to have a lot to talk about. We're going to be talking with Dr. Kamika Royal. And we'll be talking about what it means to educate Black children, how they should be educated, where they should be educated. We'll talk about some of the implications of the current pandemic and, you know, how that is complicating the choices that parents are going to be making. Of course, here in Philadelphia, children will be returning to school as of August the 31st. And Dr. Haidt has made it clear that all of the possible safety precautions will be put in place, possibly even mandating the vaccine for staffers, pending whether or not that is legal. I know that is going to be a very serious conversation. It is one that is ripe with debate. And so we will get into that a little bit. But what I'm really interested in is really figuring out this thing. I have 6 children. My oldest child is 22. My youngest child is 11. I have a set of twins who are 13. I have a 16-year-old, almost 17, who will be a senior this year. And I also have a 19-year-old. And I have experienced schooling Black children from private to public to charter and HBCU. So I have a lot to say about it myself, but I am willing and ready to learn because I just want us to be able to make the best decisions possible. So I'm really looking forward to us having that conversation. So please, please, please tune in tomorrow for that conversation, 1 to 4 right here on The Source. I appreciate everybody who called in today, and I appreciate the guests that we had. Again, if you guys want to look up our guests today, we have Dr. Janice Johnson-Dias, we have Dr. Yaba Blay, and we have Melissa Lawson. All of these women are authors. Please look up their books. They all have current books that are out. Check them out and support them. Again, my name is Aja Grayton Dantzler. I'm one half of Kindred the Family Soul. Check out our new album, Auntie and Unc, streaming everywhere. And we are out on the road right now. So you can go to kindredthefamilysoul.com and check out our tour schedule. In the meantime, y'all stay tuned for the rest of our programming here on WURD this afternoon. It's going to be wonderful. Stay tuned. Stay tuned and give us a listen. Again, I want y'all to make sure that you share that you can, even if you're not local, share with your family and friends that you can listen to WURD at WURDradio.com, and you can watch us on Facebook and YouTube, as a matter of fact. So I want us to make sure that that everybody gets an opportunity to chime in on the conversation. I appreciate y'all, and I'm grateful to have been invited to be here with you today. Y'all stay tuned for the rest of the afternoon's programming. I appreciate you. Be good.